New Close-Up Deep Action. We created it to give the world 3 times fresher breath and eliminate up to 99% of germs. Maybe we went too far. There's an outbreak of freshness. So celebrate, turn up the volume, jubilate. We really love. Now the best ever from Close-Up. 3 times fresher.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to Newsfile. I'm Samson Ladi Ayenine, and today we'll look at a couple of the major issues that made the headlines and were the biggest issues for discussion in the course of the week. Number 1, Ghana people. I am told they love to go to court. They spend months litigating, and though they know it costs money, they don't know the reality of litigation is that you win or lose. They don't know that winning is justice to the initiator of the suit, just as losing is justice to the other party. So, ahead of the verdict of the court, they willingly submitted to for solutions to their problems. They need justice and peace campaigns to educate them about this basic fact, and pleas from the clergy to accept the solution they paid for. What a beacon of democracy in this part of our globe. Forgive me, I really didn't mean to provoke you this bad. The Jida wrought investigative report reveals things many ministerial committees don't usually reveal. It declares boldly, without equivocation, that officials caused a shift of the focus of the popular youth program from employment generation opportunities to corruption cash cow for a few. Guess what? It appears Ghost took cash to consult the World Bank to fund Jida. Will those caught illegally milking this cow ever be made to tell a court why and how they chose the path of sin, the wages of which is death? We'll find time to talk about the economy also. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
In presenting the 2013 budget, we informed you and the good people of Ghana about the fiscal slippages. These include slippages on the wage bill in particular, slippages with respect to the corporate income tax, especially from petroleum sector, the slippages due to the non-adjustments of the subsidy on petroleum and utilities. For 2012 in particular, our contributions that we normally receive from the budget from our development partners or donors also experience a significant shortfall. These continue to be the challenges. Having challenges with an economy does not translate, as I've often said, to that economy being broke. The revenues are performing well. We do have expenditure challenges. And we did mention in the budget that we are intent on realigning the elements in the budget. We were also making 2 corrections, and let me emphasize corrections, to the tax regime. One is the communication service tax. This tax was introduced in 2008. We all know it. We call it variously as a talk tax. What we are seeking to do are 2 things. First, to clarify the nature of the tax as an excise, not as a VAT. For example, we collect the GET fund as a VAT. We collect the NHIL as a VAT. But we collect the environmental tax, which is the second correction we are making, not as a VAT, but as an excise. So to use that issue, to confuse the correction that we are making, I think is not fair to, what government, was seeking to do. We are using part of the funds to start the amortization of the 750 first sovereign bond. We are using part to refinance our domestic and foreign debt, which is at very high interest rates. We are using part to pay for counterpart funds, and then the remainder will be for meeting capital commitments in the budget.
We have categorized broadly our findings into 4. 1, absence of an appropriate legal, institutional, and regulatory framework to guide the operations of Jida. Breakdown of governance and operational structures, inadequate financial oversight and monitoring mechanisms, and 4, shift in focus from the ultimate beneficiaries to other stakeholders. In spite of these challenges, the committee is convinced that the concept and objective of Jida remain relevant. Therefore, we have appropriate recommendations for your considerations. Methodology used included purposive sampling. This was conducted to select key stakeholders, such as the past 5 ministers for youth and sports and the Auditor General, whose expert knowledge and opinion on the program was sought. In addition to that, a stratified random sampling was conducted to select beneficiaries of models to be interviewed as part of the assessment. A simple random sampling of other beneficiaries from existing contact database provided was done to complement the data collected. We visited all the 10 regions of Ghana and covered 50 districts. A minimum of 520 beneficiaries were interviewed.
The terms of reference were quite clear, and as a result of that, this report has been presented to us today. Government will go into the report and especially study your recommendations carefully. And it is our intention to review and restructure Jida radically based on the report that you have presented. And so we're going to look at it and to study the report, and in the next few days, weeks, begin to implement those recommendations in a very firm manner.
Calls on government to brief this House on the outcome of ongoing investigations. Totally different. They are not related in any way in terms of what, as representatives of the people, we really wanted to be seen to be doing. Because of the fear and panic and all kinds of things that were going on, people from a certain political party had been accused of being behind these fires. Arson. Some people said it was arson. Some people said it was as a result of sabotage and the rest. So that is why this motion was brought.
Are you up on a point of order? Yes.
And
so very well, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thought by doing this, she is virtually submitting the speaking of the motion. And Mr. Speaker, she's out of order and to be brought to order. All right, thank you very much. Honorable Majority Leader.
To this country, why can't we debate? And it's been more than 3 weeks. It's been more than 3 weeks. Can we, Mr. Speaker, with respect, can we have any indication? Can we have any indication about the status of the second one as well?
Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Well, we...
Order.
As leadership, I certainly should not have been making this inquiry from the minority leader. I'm saying as leadership, I shouldn't have been making this inquiry on the floor of the House. But if my memory serves me right, as at close of day yesterday, there was a minute to majority leader stroke minority leader with a copy of the motion by the honorable member requesting a discussion on it, yes. So I don't know whether his copy is still in the process, but there is a minute from the right honorable speaker that the majority leader and minority leader should have a discussion with him on this matter.
Welcome back. This is Newsfile. We're coming to you live from the Multi-TV studios. This is Joy News Channel. You're listening to us on Joy 99.7 FM here from Accra, on Love FM in Kumasi, and over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. You're watching and also listening to us at Multi-TV World/streams and myjoyonline.com. Now, you can join us with your views, your comments, your questions to my panelists, and the text line is 1422. 1422. That is the text line, 1422. You can also send an email to newsfile@myjoyonline.com. My guests are seated, and we'll get into the discussion right about now. Abdul Malik Kweku Bako Jr. He's the editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Abraham Amaliba is a member of the NDC legal team. And Nana Atodazi is also a member of the NDC legal team and former chief of staff. Gabi Asari Ochredako of the Dankwa Institute will join us shortly. Welcome to the show. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now, as you may have heard me earlier, today we are looking at four major issues that became very topical in the course of the week, but with major emphasis on two of them. And first, we are looking at the Supreme petition, and then the aftermath of the hearing itself. As you know, hearing has concluded, and you heard Justice Atuguba announce or declare that the battle of evidence has ended. On the 30th of this month, addresses will be filed, and then the 31st of the same month, they will go back to court, and the court will give further directions as to what happens next. It is very likely that in pursuant to CI 74, Rule 69C4, we may get judgment by the 15th of August. And I'm sure you have followed the crusade about pleading to people to accept the verdict. It's a major issue for discussion this morning. We'll look at Jida also. A lot of things have gone on there, and an investigative committee set up by the sports minister has revealed the unthinkable. Those people who have been indicted, will they ever see the corridors of the courts? Well, we'll get into all of those issues in a minute. Now, I'd like to start with you, Nana Todazi. I want us to start bottom up. You witnessed or may have followed what happened. The IDEC, together with some other, stakeholders, organized this summit, and the summit sought to have quite very distinguished persons in this country. Those who were billed to be there were the former presidents, Jerry John Rawlings and John Ejekum Kufuor, among others, to seek to, urge people about the need to accept the verdict when it is eventually delivered. Question: is there really a need for this?
Yes. Thank you very much. We are in very challenging times. It's like we've reached a bridge, and as we say, when we get to the bridge, we will cross it. It's a popular saying. But we're dealing with a nationhood, and the growth, of our nation. We're moving on. We hit a very critical point when we introduced the 1992 Constitution. In it, various lines were drawn at various stages, the country will need to cross certain bridges. Luckily for us, for purposes of determining who should run the affairs of state as executive, we have clearly set out in the Constitution the position as to how we go about it. We use the party system. The multi-partyism is on at the base of our democratic dispensation. The parties will compete. At the end of the day, somebody, one party or other persons will be elected. When they are elected, they are sworn in. Now, what about if there are challenges to the Constitution has a clear framework for dealing with challenges. And I think that for now, this is what we've gone through in a case of a challenge. And it's essentially, this is a very important one. It's been in the past, but this is a key one that has been fought, on the merits, as it were, by both parties or the competing parties. And I think it is that which is heightened the interest, and the fact that it also went live. The proceedings were carried live, and the fact that we are seeing 5 million supporters on either side, all interested in knowing, the conclusion. And even the background where we came from. I mean, that we had immediately after the elections, there was dissent. People were gathered elsewhere. The circle. They wouldn't move and all that. I mean, tension was brewing, and it's good that they went into court. They took the path of the process, the constitutional process, and they raised their challenge openly. They battled. Their lawyers have fought. Ghanaian judges have sat for 91, run a span of 91 days, 17 July, 16 April to 17 July. Yes.
My question is embedded in the introduction that I gave.
Yes.
And I asked the question. We have spent months litigating, and though we appear to know that it costs money, a lot of money to do that, we don't seem to know that the reality of litigation is that you win or you lose. Why is that so? And again, that there is justice in winning and there is justice in losing. The one who goes to court hopes to win and sees that as justice. The one who is taken to court hopes that the one who took him to court will lose, and that is justice from their perspective. Why do we go through all of this, and then in the end, we need to now spend another time educating ourselves about the basic facts that you go to court to win or lose, and that the verdict ought to be accepted?
Yes, that's like exactly why I've had to roll back to where we've come from. That from 1992, we decided to use the Constitution, the democratic Constitution, as a process. And we also agreed the multipartyism, you are saying. And we also agreed that, the judiciary will be the arbiter, as it were, in all these matters. And now we've reached that point, and the point that I think that the whole appeal that is being made is that if this is our constitutional order, if this is what as a people by referendum we voted for, to go by this constitutional order, then we should allow that order to prevail.
All right.
The reason being simply that the rule of law will have to be entrenched. People will have to come to understand that this is our decision collectively. So
thanks for your opening comments. Gabi Asariochi-Dako just joined us. Good morning, Gabi, and welcome.
Good morning.
Good to have you. Now, I'll come to you, Abdul Malik. Is there a need for this crusade and campaign? And police, I understand, are even in Tamale, where they have started their campaign also. Is that the job of the police, to go campaigning and telling people that accept the verdict of a court?
Well, this is not an ordinary case. This is not an ordinary litigation. In spite of the fact that the NDC went to court in 2005, this particular petition, election petition, has a certain dynamic, certain characteristic that one the 2005 did not have for various reasons. And I'm not too sure we should go into those aspects. We've dealt with them here before. So this is essentially a very distinctive, almost unprecedented litigation, being live, both radio and TV. So it has its own dynamic. Public interest in it is high. Yes, the live telecast has helped to demystify the proceeding. It has helped to educate and inform. So it has created a space where I think acceptability of the outcome would be wider than it would have been if it hadn't had that live telecast. Human nature being what it is, we're all supposed to be law-abiding. We're all supposed to believe in the law. But we have a certain nature, you know, when it's an extraordinary circumstances. You do preventive as well as preemptive things to ensure that the stability that we have is maintained. Now, of course, my candid opinion is that those who proceeded to court to petition indicated their commitment to using law to litigate on the dispute. Implied in there is that they are prepared to accept the outcome. Of course, short of review, that's also law.
That's so.
So for me, right from word go, the fact that you proceed to court means that you are committing yourself. Those who came to issue or offer the challenge, which is also required by law, also have accepted that this is the forum. But as I said, this is a society. We are millions of Ghanaians out there, apart from the 10 million or so that voted. There are many others who didn't vote or who are not even of the voting age. We are talking here of a nation, of a society, of a people. So you don't take chances. I think much, much earlier, somebody like Gabi, and I have to give him credit for that, kept on raising this issue of preparing people's minds ahead of time.
He wrote an article about that.
Yes, you know, so there's absolutely nothing wrong. If I would gain rather than lose, if we were to say that because it's law and everybody must be law-abiding and accept the outcome, so let's sit down and wait, I think that would be an unrealistic proposition. And I would not vote for that. Okay. I would vote for being proactive, being very, you know, direct, to conscientize the people, get traditional authorities, political leadership, the religious community, or to the media, of course. I think that we are also part of it. It depends on how we go about doing our gatekeeping and doing the communication. Okay. So please, let's not underestimate the need for preparing people's mind that even though we all know the law, let us be ready to accept what the Supreme Court will say. Okay,
as you establish the need, and very fundamental need for this sort of education, will come to deal with how it should be done, how exactly it should be done. But Abi, tell me, you go to court, say almost on a daily basis. You lead clients to court. When they lose, they have lost. If they have to appeal, they appeal. If they have to go for review, they go for review. They don't hit the streets, you know, with machetes. Why is this a different situation? Or you agree with Koko that because this is almost unprecedented, that's why there's a need to do so?
Initially, when I heard that there was a crusade to get people to accept the election results, I asked myself, is there anybody in this country who doesn't know that when you go to court, you either lose or win? I asked myself that question. And initially, I thought that there was no need for that. But as we went through the emotions in court, and I even observed the way the lawyers themselves were conducting the case, and the lawyers would use harsh language against each other, gave me the signal that then the supporters down there need to be prepared in their minds. Because, you see, the society is heavily polarized along NDC, MPP. Indeed, those in the minority parties are here. They also have their own lineages within. So there's a CPP, NDC, CPP, MPP. So if you have such a situation and you notice that people are so much emotionally attached to the cause of these parties, then you begin to revise your notes as I have revised my notes. And so I agree with the suggestion that we need to prepare the minds of people. But beyond that, I think not only the people, not only the supporters, but beyond that is the leaders themselves. It is one thing they saying that we would agree to the Supreme Court ruling. And another thing, really walking the talk. These things that we are talking about, summit for peace, declarations for peace, we had it before the elections. There was a Kumasi declaration. What has come out of it? And so, for me, if we are able to get the leadership, because the supporters
so
look up
you're
to...
saying that the education is actually not targeted only at, like we keep saying, the ordinary
Rank and
people, especially illiterate society community,
Yes.
who do not have the capacity to understand some of the intricacies of the legal, system.
Yes.
But it must also go to the leaders.
The leaders. And indeed, if the leaders imbibe this whole clarion call from Ghanaians that enough is enough, I think that's the message we are putting out there. This summit tomorrow, or is it today, is saying that enough is enough. People want to move along with their lives.
Right.
We can't be sleeping in the court every day. If that message goes to the leaders, I think the followers would follow. So I think that much focus should be on the leadership than even the followers.
I see. Gabi, do we have an option here?
Well, can get back to a jungle kind of living. That's the option. But I think we've all, if you like, subscribed to constitutional democracy. And really, I'm happy that we are taking proactive steps towards preparing the minds of the people to whatever decision that the court will take. The court itself helped us, first of all, by the live broadcast, because that allows people,
Which you championed?
Which some of us championed. Yeah. Allowed the public to go along with the evidence and what that entails. And also, I think the contempt actions they took, we may have your arguments for or against, but that also was part of it, to show that, look, we have the authority to rule on this matter, and that authority is given to us by the Constitution. Yeah, so I think
in fact, any attempt to disobey the order of the court when it gives a judgment will be contempt.
Well, yeah, yes. And it can even be treasonable. It can be more serious than that.
And more.
Because you see,
I agree, that's in the face of the law. But when it comes to about 1,000, 10,000
enforcement,
enforcement, maybe I shouldn't go any further.
I think the issue really, I think you may choose to disagree.
Yeah.
But you have no option whether or not to abide by it. I don't know if we need to explain that.
That's
you
clear.
can say I disagree with the decision of the court, but I must respect it, and I'm bound by it. So if we can get people to understand that, but getting people to understand that also means we should let people understand the authority that the court has. That authority has been granted by the Constitution. If you look at it under Article 64, if you're a citizen, you want to challenge, take it to the Supreme Court within 21 days. And the Supreme Court has to look into the matter and see whether the president was validly elected or not. And how do you do that? Validity or invalidity is about compliance with rules of how these things are done in terms of how you run elections. So clearly it's about the Constitution, it's about the laws governing how these elections are done, and it's about the evidence.
All right.
These are the three things. I hear some people saying that the status quo. As far as some of us are concerned, as far as we should be concerned, the status quo is the Constitution. Everything that is allowed by the Constitution, if you go by the Constitution or you do those things, it is the status quo. So let people understand that. You may hear all sort of discussions out there. Will they have the courage? Will they have, some even use certain two-round things rather than carriage. Yeah, I'm not too sure how that applies to the whole panel. Right. But will they have the carriage? I mean, what carriage? The carriage is what the Constitution allows them to do. So long as we understand that, I really don't think there'll be a problem. And also, we have a very law-abiding security force, the soldiers and the police. They will follow the law. If this is what the law says, that the president was validly elected, regardless of what all of us may think, that's what it is. If they say he was not validly elected, it may have one or two other things. Either somebody else was validly elected or the election was not conclusive. All these things, or the election was poorly run. They have all these options. And if you look at CI 74, it tells you the form by which you have to even file an election petition. And that form also tells you the authority that the court has in terms of ruling one way or the other. So I think in getting people to know that they have no option but to accept the decision, we should educate them about the authority of the court and that whatever they do is envisaged by the Constitution. Because it says, without prejudice to whatever decision the president has taken, which means the Constitution itself knew that by the time there's an election petition, ministers probably would have been sworn in. Because the 21 days, if you have a rerun, or if you have a runoff, the 21 days, by the time it runs, the president has already been sworn.
All right.
And all these things are there. So let's also educate our people that whatever is happening, look, who thought that 2,000 people were afraid? In 96, there were all sort of surveys. Some people said, I read the Dispatch, for instance. There was a survey that people voted for President Rawlings because they were afraid that he would not let go in 96. Okay? In 2000, there was a smooth transition. 2008, there was a smooth transition. Even last year, when something happened that had never happened in this country, where you have a certain president, losing his life. And what did we have? A smooth transition. The whole world praised us for that. A similar thing happened in Malawi. They had difficulties. Ethiopia, they didn't even want to say it.
Are you proud that this is what we have to do ahead of the verdict as a country?
I think, yes, it's really important because, the Ghanaians, at the end of the day, we want justice, we want the rule of law, we want the constitutional democracy to be strengthened. But
President Kufuor qualifies is that if it is the truth that they come to, then there's no difficulty accepting it.
I mean, look, I have been in court. You've been around court. I mean, I'm talking about the Supreme Court itself. My senior here, my brother here, we've all been. Kweku Baku, he has about 10 radio stations on at the same time when the court proceedings out. We've seen how, in my opinion, how fair the court has been. Because I've had issues with some of the decisions. My brother here, my senior here, has also had issues. And that itself tells you how balanced and fair the court has been. So in terms of having the capacity to look at the Constitution, look at the laws, look at the evidence, and rule accordingly, I don't think any of us have any doubt.
Okay. Back to you, Nana. It appears that you hear educate the people. So there's a certain target, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. There is a certain target. I mean, I think it was my brother Amaliba who really talked about something that touches my heart. In terms of what is the target? Which segment of the society are we talking about? That appeals to the whole country, But I mean, in reality, I mean, the ordinary man would want to go about his business, how to earn a little money to keep his life up, But there are other people who have politics as a profession. They are professional politicians. And that's another matter. And, a lot of times it is also the democratic credentials of the leadership, which is very, very, very critical in every society. In Africa, it is, the man loses the election, he says, I'm not leaving. His followers, obviously, will toe that line. The man loses his election. He says, well, for the sake of the country, even though I'm not happy with it, I'll give up. I'll come back and fight another day. Okay. And that was Professor John Atta Mills for you.
Tell me this. When people express some amount of fear or apprehension about how the verdict will be welcomed, is it really about what the reaction of the people down there will be or the reaction of the people at the top?
Well, I think that it's an egg and chicken case. It's both. But really, the fear is the mass thing. What Kweku said, thousands, millions of Ghanaians, if they say they dissent, then you have a problem on your hand. But really, the decision-making is in the hands of the few, the leadership. And then I'm saying that...
So how is it correct to suggest that it's really about the masses and not about those at the top who are supposed to take the decisions?
Well, of course, the people who have gathered to say we want peace, they are the first to be converted. They must be converted. And I'm serious about this. That if they are converted, if we are convinced in terms of leadership, that, look, we must come together. And the point I was making earlier on is that it's a rule of law. It's accepting that the law is supreme, the Constitution is supreme, that we as a people have agreed that this is a method that we should go by. So if the Supreme Court decides, that's it. There's a commitment we must make to it. But if the Supreme Court makes a decision, and because of the investment we've made, don't matter how much has he put in. The investment that we've made is that which provokes us to want to hold on. And I'm saying that in this country, we have seen examples of people, of leaders who have said, I'm not too happy, but for the sake of the nation, I'll let go. It happened to Professor Atta Mills. It happened to Nado itself, that was a thin lead.
I see.
You understand? It was a thin lead. But, I'm sure he wasn't happy at his 2008 election. But he said, well, at the end of the day, after consultations, yes. So the leadership, we need to develop an advisory team. We need eminent people who will counsel the leaders themselves. Losing an election is no easy job.
Right.
Not for the other man.
Now, Kweku, is it not correct to say that if anything will happen, touchwood, untoward, it is the politician, the people at the top, who are to blame for it? And is it not correct also to say that, to suggest that it is the people down there who may be tempted to do something wrong or have a difficulty accepting the result is trying to pass the buck? It's rather, if they have a difficulty accepting the verdict, it is the people at the top who have given them those ideas.
Yes, the principle of ultimate responsibility, and a higher one at that. I invest in the political leadership. But as we speak, the political leaders across the divide have expressed their commitment to the cause of justice as being dealt with in the court of law. As we speak, there isn't much to hold against the leaders. I'm talking of the main leaders who are involved in the litigation. Of course, time will test them in terms of their commitment. But we have precedents, and I'm glad that eventually Nana brought in the 2008 fashion, because at one stage I thought it was being selective, and that would have distorted the thing. The truth of the matter is that 2004, the good old professor conceded, wrote a concession statement, but still proceeded to court through 3 members of the NDC leadership. 2012, Danado is in court. It's law. He is going according to law, Article 16.4.1, isn't it? That gives him the right to do so. 1996, Kufuor accepted with reservations, but allowed it to move on. We have had precedents. In fact, 1979, Victor Wusu conceded even before the Electoral Commissioner announced the verdict. So we have precedents. The fact that one goes to court to litigate should not be used against the person in terms of his commitment to due process. I think that is unfair. That rather reinforces the person's commitment to the thing. But you see, I'm not too sure the Kumasi Declaration placed an injunction on Article 64. One.
That's a good question.
It did not. And I unfortunately didn't bring my copy, but if you read the text, there's nowhere that that declaration was more or less imposing on the leaders that whatever the outcome, accept. I think it was more of our commitment to a peaceful election, free and fair election, and knowing that the Constitution is superior to any declaration that they might have entered into. So this is the way I see it. But bottom line, political leaders are those who have the ultimate responsibility, and they are the people who must lead, even in conscientizing their rank and file to accept the outcome. And I keep on saying, let's not forget that there is the possibility of a review. I would love if nobody goes for a review, to be honest with you. But I'm not talking law here.
And thanks to Bernard Mona.
But that one, even the Mona thing, yes. I'm still confused about it. If you go into the thing properly, that Rule 55 was talking only of the time frame of when you can file a review. That is the truth. Read the judgment.
The title was categorical.
Yeah, but there was something wrong with how they crafted or drafted the law.
So you needed to clarify.
But strictly speaking, Rule 55 was dealing with time frame. And that is what CI 74 took away.
In that case, Bernard Mona's rate was
it helped to clarify things.
No, it was not. It helped to clarify.
Strictly speaking, I mean, you are the lawyers. I'm not.
It's to clarify.
But I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So that I think something went wrong with how it was crafted. But please don't let's digress.
All right.
This is a digression of a sort. But the truth of the matter is that we should also let people know that if somebody decides to go for a review, he is not being lawless.
That is so.
Okay? He's not saying, I challenge the authority of the Supreme Court. As Gabi said, you can disagree. But if you disagree, there are procedures for you to show your disagreement. And that's a review.
Okay. No? Now, Ebi, have you ever contemplated, has it ever come into your mind that it is possible that the president or Nana Akufo-Addo will say, I refuse to accept the verdict?
It is within their right to do that if they did that. But
no, can you contemplate that?
I cannot think for them.
To do that?
Yes, they have the right to go for a review. Why? Is it not within their right?
No, not review. I'm talking about what fear is leading to this campaign. Accept the result, the outcome.
Whether they will say they won't accept?
Yes.
Oh, they are human beings. You see, it's difficult to go into somebody's mind. But they are human beings, but they are surrounded by advisors. It will take their advisors to sort of impress upon them.
Your colleagues are shocked to hear you say that.
They're
expressing that in their faces.
Maybe your question is not being well
there's nothing wrong. You see, I'm saying that they are human beings.
Absolutely right.
And they could contemplate anyhow. There's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. So what you're asking me to do is to go into the minds of Nana Akufo-Addo and President John Mahama.
There's a lie detector now, you know.
Lie detector, okay. But largely, they would also have to look at the larger picture. And they will know that the mood of the country is not to tolerate any of them trying to put this country into chaotic moments. So if that is part of their thinking, that will suppress whatever, untoward behavior they want to put up. But let me say that
it doesn't even mind. It doesn't matter that the president should be aware that the Constitution, in the very preliminary stages, provides that the executive or the president's disobedience of an order of the court is treason of a high kind.
No, but you see, because there's a review. If he disagrees,
no, I'm not talking about the aspect of review, because
yes,
that's not what is in contention now. What is in contention is fears of rejecting the result. That's why the pleas are plea for people to accept the result, the outcome.
There's one thing thinking about something and another thing putting it into practice. Probably he could be in his bed saying that I won't accept it, but it will not be translated into not accepting it. So there are two things. So when he looks at the larger picture and sees that the mood of the country is not to tolerate such a behavior, he cannot but fall in line. And so what I'm just doing now is trying to enter into people's minds, which, you know, I can't competently do that. But I can just put out the scenarios for you.
You're actually saying that we cannot take them by their word because they have given their word that they will accept the outcome.
They have given their word, but we shouldn't go to sleep. We should do what we are doing. We should hold them responsible. Indeed, those who are organizing these things today, is it today? There's some
we had one yesterday.
Should be bold enough if any of the two protagonists decides to do something untoward. I expect President Kufuor to tell Nana Akufo-Addo, look, stop it. I expect President Rawlings to tell President John Mahama, stop it. It is not just for them to go there and then take pictures. They should be bold enough to say that that is wrong. We do not accept what you are doing, Nana Akufo-Addo. That is wrong. President John Mahama, we don't accept what you are doing. They should go further. I have seen situations where when Nana Akufo-Addo made this all die be die speech, your colleague, what's his name, Kofi Oppong-Nkrumah, was looking for people Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, call people to comment on it. Everybody went silent. That day, I was driving and listening. He called people to make comments on it. Nobody was picking his calls. The clergy, those prominent people in society. And I was telling myself.
I don't remember that event, but he announced it on the show that he can't get anybody.
Yes, he said people are not picking their calls.
I see.
And I said that I expected Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah to then call ordinary Ghanaians. They are not the only people in Ghana to comment on it.
I see.
So I think that we should be bold enough to tell the leaders in their face that it is wrong. What is wrong is wrong. It doesn't matter who is perpetrating the wrong. Okay. The sword must cut in both sides.
You don't have to go through know the mind's construction.
Gabi, I'm back to you, and I'm asking, in a concerted way, how should this plea for acceptance of the verdict be done? How should it be done?
I think, one, I know, for instance, I'll give you an example of what I know with the MPP. Sir John, the General Secretary, I know he's been to about 6 or so regions where he's met his regional and constituency executives, spoken to them about the merits of the case and the rest of it, how they should mind their language and the authority of the court. So I think really it helps for the party leadership to be speaking to their party members.
And you trust that the party leaders will be telling their members that we may lose?
Yeah. You don't have to say you may lose. It doesn't have to be in your language. You know, your party members don't want to hear you may lose. And you don't have to tell them. All you have to do is to tell them that we have no option. We think you can go in and say, look, we believe in the merits of our case. You know, our evidence is strong, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, there could be 3 or 4, whatever, options, decisions that can come out from this case. And we would have no option, but we will look at whether it's a majority rule or, you know, decision or whatever, and advise ourselves. And now, if you have an option, the option may be a review or whatever it is. But so it's important to let them know that, because once you get into, it's like getting onto the pitch. You may lose, you may draw, you may win. Okay? In a court case, I hear people say you may either lose or win, but it's not necessarily so. Yeah. There could be partial victory and that sort of thing.
That's correct.
So what's important is for them to be educating them that at the end of the day, we don't have an option about not knowing being able to detect the man's construction through the face. You don't have to look at the face. You can look at even the person's record. I know President John Mahama on a social level. I've studied him politically. Instinctively, I don't think he's the sort of person who would want to cause trouble. That's instinctively, at the end of the day. But that's what I feel quite confident from that point of view. Akufo-Addo, he keeps saying, You know, so he's the sort of person who believes in the rule of law. When he was fighting against dictatorship in the 70s, he didn't pick a gun. He didn't pick up a gun. He went on the streets and did things that were...
He speaks about conceding even where there was the slightest of margins.
Absolutely. I mean, so you can see that we have, fortunately, if you're going by... Because we can only go by their history.
Okay. So
we can only go by their history.
Question,
we can go by...
question is, in that case, we should go to sleep and sleep peacefully and forget about having to worry about the need to educate anybody. Because if they accept it, that's it.
There's also, you know, even the leadership, to a point, they can't also always control their followers. To a point. To a point. So we need to, it's important that we engage, we get them to engage their followers, and we also get their followers to understand as much as possible. Because, yes, absolutely. I mean, the signals from leadership is quite key. If you remember, immediately, I think, shortly after the elections, and especially after they filed, MPP supporters went to a brass pot. It took the chairman of the party to come out and say, go home. A lot of them were happy with them. But at least they obeyed and went home. So the leadership has the responsibility and, if you like, the influence on the supporters. But we can all chip in. The media chip in. I heard, for instance, I think the organizer of the NDC saying on air, previously he had said that the court case was a waste of time. But yesterday I heard him saying, was it yesterday or a couple of days ago, that the only thing that will come out of this is reforms. You see what I mean? Now...
But that's not new. That's been said many times.
No, but I'm getting... I mean, to me, this is like somebody walking into the studio and picking up your console and being arrested by the police, and the thing is in custody of the police. And then it shows that clearly you should have put a lock on the door. So the court will say, the thief can keep your console, okay? But you have to reform how you deal with your security.
Okay, I see where you're getting into now.
You know, so they...
I see where you're getting into now.
This is the stealing that you could not prove in court. The stealing that you abandoned. The stealing that you said that they were parties. You couldn't show that in court. So there's no... This is not issue of stealing.
You don't have to go to court to prove that somebody was fraudulent.
Okay. Okay, Gabi, don't take us further there. Yes, Nana.
I keep saying that at times we run away from it. I said that we must develop and instill in our people the respect for the rule of law. It's as simple as that. There are other organs we have that responsibility to do. The civic, NCC and whatnot.
They don't have funds. They are unable to do it the way they ought to be doing.
So we must resource them. You understand? The very concept of the rule of law is something that people have written books. You know it. Thousands and millions of books. To what is it that so we take ourselves out of the realm of jungle? Yeah, like Gabi's example is giving. Yes, it can be painful, but how many persons are not in Sawam prison who probably are innocent?
Okay.
Not only their place, all over the world. 20 years after there's a forensic examination, and they find out the man who has been convicted for murder. After all, in the US, in the UK. Yeah. So it's not guilty. The point about it is that we must accept that, right or wrong, the rule of law is better than the law of the jungle. You understand? So we go back.
In fact, in the jungle, there's no law.
Absolutely, that's the point. And life, they say that life is nasty, British and short. I think that is important. Secondly, that the leadership must have that democratic posturing. What we say, how we say it, that, look, you must go. I think I disagree with Gabi. The leadership, one statement from Nanado, one statement from President Mahama, appealing, telling the people, well, we fought the battle, but we wait for the decision, we'll go by whatever it takes. We'll have a binding effect more than anything else. I mean, absolutely.
You're asking them to hold press conferences or make these statements
they need to.
within the next few days?
So make affirmations. They've been, I know I've heard President Mahama in other places saying that, you abide by it. But this statement...
No, but he's also said a few things that sounded...
Absolutely.
He didn't mean that.
The gap between now and, the judgment, I think that if we don't fill it with warm sentiments, we will have people make sentiments which will destroy the atmosphere. For me, when the lawyers on Wednesday or so, held hands, hugged, live television, whatnot. It was not
that is just for the cameras, right?
No, it was no. We're there. Don't forget that the previous day there had been we ended on a very agitated
That
note.
doesn't change your arguments.
No, I'm saying that for instance, when the Gabi was done, I told our friends that, look, whatever we do will reflect outside there. And I was happy that the next day, you were there, I was happy that the next day, just out of blue, they all got together and hugging each other, It's not that we're lifting ourselves or doing any propaganda thing. But I think that looking back, later on, watching the cameras, this is good for the society. It's good for the country. After all, it's the larger picture. We must do more education. Tell the people that you can win, you can lose, like Gabi says, we may draw. And then the media, from now until the judgment, must keep the gate properly shut. Make sure that only those statements which will go to enhance the rule of law be allowed. Because I'm saying that even before the judgment comes out, there could be a terrible poisoning of the minds of the people.
Koko, you are in the media, a very senior person in the area. How does the media do what Nana is suggesting? Project only what is progressive and conducive for this process, and if there are any comments that you, in your editorial opinion, is sort of a bomb.
To the extent that we are gatekeepers, yes, we have a certain level of responsibility. But I'll quickly also appeal to the politicians and their communicators to avoid verbal diarrhea, to avoid explosives. We are all looking at a specific case, this petition, and the fact that we are at a very crucial and critical stage. So we, the media, and particularly electronic media, it's a very powerful instrument. It's more powerful than the print, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of its impact instantaneously on broad sections of the society across the nation, in places where even the security network is thin and not strong enough. So yes, the media, both print and electronic, but more emphasis on the electronic, especially radio, must actually reinforce its gatekeeping capacity and be very, very strict. I will go for that. But comes down to also the political leaders, their communicators, and the things they will say. I am ultimate optimist in this matter. I think that nothing will go wrong. That's my feeling. I may be wrong, but I'm just too clear in my mind and heart that nothing will go wrong relative to this thing. This country will be stronger after this particular process. So this is the way I see it. But the media, we have an association, the Ghana Journalists Association. We have the Print Park. We have the National Media Commission. Within these 2 weeks, I'm not able, as I sit here, to formulate a strategy or any program. But I think that we have leaders. They could engage us in some very, innovative schemes to do something.
Like IDEC is doing?
Yes.
I don't know if this is just one, and that's all.
I'm fully for the IDEC thing. You had the situation where the former presidents were present, added their voice to it. It brings some level of, passion and commitment. If you see all.
And it's interesting that former President Rawlings did not limit it only to the mainstream media, but also social media.
Yeah, that place is a minefield. Look, it's a minefield. As we speak, you go check it. And anytime the court was sitting, the least thing, there's an interpretation and a judgment on it on social media. A very explosive zone. But is it possible to control that area? I'm not too sure about that. let's focus on the electronic media especially. This radio station, the Peace FM, Gold, Oman FM, they have networks across the country. Okay, people pick and tap into them. So yes, I will appeal to those of us in the media to just let, get focused and let tensions come down. Okay. But I believe sincerely that nothing will go wrong.
On the media, I want you, looking at the media, look at the role also of the National Peace Council, specific. How should they go about executing their mandate in this respect? Talk about the religious as well. How should they get into it?
For the media, they would have to understand that the nation is at a crossroad. And being at a crossroad, it is important for them to be mindful of those they invite to discussions.
Okay.
All the political parties have hot heads, and there are the cool heads. This is a time for the cool heads to champion the cause. This is a time for the political parties to also, as it were, take the hot heads back and let the cool heads, control the discussions. And the media should be at the forefront of pointing and picking those people to come for such programs. On the National Peace Council and the religious leaders, and NCC, because they are staffed with resources, they can't do much. They can only do little. And I've heard their public relations officer, Kwama Boatin, making the point that they have started doing something in their own way. But the National Peace Council and the Peace Council, the religious leaders, they would have a bigger role to play in this. Because, you see, people look up to them. When politics fail, people would go to the churches, would go to the mosque. And indeed, that explains why you have so many people resorting to Prophet Joshua than even going to the government, because they think that government has failed. And so the religious leaders should understand that they have a big role to play in nation building and ensuring the peace of this country. What I would expect them to do, beyond these talks, should also have personal contact, meetings with the two protagonists. I expect them to go and meet President John Mahama. I expect them to go and meet Nana Akufo-Addo before the verdict comes out. Same with the religious leaders. Together, we must see the two protagonists in a handshake. That may be a small thing, but the impact it will create. Because if you then see Nana Akufo-Addo and President John Mahama shaking and exchanging pleasantries, who are you in my village to begin to take a cutlass and be attacking your neighbor? So beyond this, they should go further to have a meeting and have a lunch, between the two protagonists. And I think that will send a very good signal to the downtrodden.
All right, just a few text messages here by way of contribution.
Who else will be attending?
Okay. Now I'll return to you guys to let us get into a bit of the technicalities, getting to 30th and 31st. And after that, what should we expect in terms of the further directions that the court is going to give? And between now and then, is there room for any of the parties to file any processes in whatever form? This one, Albert says, is human nature in America different from that in Ghana? It is the same, except that they understand what system of government they undertake. There is nothing unprecedented about this petition. We are undermining institutional confidence. In any case, how can we measure the impact of the peace campaigns? Impact of the peace campaigns, how can we measure that? I'm sure there should be some way to do that.
By using institutions. What sort of logic is that?
And Ras Mubarak makes a contribution. He says that the case is a blessing in disguise, in the sense that when all is said and done, we all accept the verdict peacefully, Ghana could rake in millions of euros in investment. I need to understand that a lot more better. On the question of how we can prepare the nation, we need to widen the scope of stakeholders. For example, we can engage doctors and nurses who would be overwhelmed by casualties in the event of violence. The need to add their voices to calls for peace. We must also note that criminals will take advantage to start trouble in order to loot. I think this is important. So police and the military intelligence gathering is crucial. And currently, police assurances is also good in that direction. Thank you very much. 1422, that is a text line. And you can send a mail to newsfile@myjoyonline.com. This show is brought to you by the kindest sponsorship of MTN. Everywhere you go, Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and as close as a partner, and Lipton, inspiration that flows from nature. Now, MTN BlackBerry, this is what they want you to know. You work smarter on the go with the all-new BlackBerry Curve 9220, okay, 9220 from MTN. With your new BlackBerry Curve 9220, you ping, work, and hang out more anytime, anywhere. Get yours today from MTN for only 410 Ghana cedis and enjoy a whopping 12 months of free BB social plan. Go on, ping, work, and hang out more with your sleek BlackBerry Curve 9220 from MTN. Visit any MTN outlet for yours today. MTN, everywhere you go. Lipton, you join Lipton Tea on the journey of refreshment and vitality. The world's favorite hot tea brand will give you the needed level of alertness to start your day. So take another look at your day and begin with a cup of Lipton for natural refreshment in the mind and body. And like I say, Lipton Tea, inspiration flowing from nature. Now, I think I'll start with you on this one. Nana, what do you expect between now and the 30th? We know that you have been asked to bring your written addresses. What are you going to do beyond that?
Well, yeah, basically, the trial, as it were, the phase 3 has ended, phase 2 has ended. I mean, the pleadings and whatnot, and then you go into the main trial that is ended. And you just have, now you say we should file addresses. The lawyers put the evidence and the facts and the law together, mix it up, and then urge the court to make a decision one way or the other. And that's where we are heading to. The 30th is the deadline that in simultaneous filing.
You are defining address.
Yes.
Take your time and do it properly for the lay people to understand.
Well, basically, as I said, the order is for the two parties to submit their addresses simultaneously at the same time, but not later than 30th.
What is the address?
And the address, basically, it's the preparation of a document, putting together of all the evidence that has been called in, the cross-examination, examination, chief, and all that. Then the evidence, the material evidence,
the pink
sheets and all that will be looked at. And then the lawyers will just put out a case, distill a case out of that to say that, listen, Mr. Judge, looking at the evidence, the oral evidence, the written documentation, and other material, that the cross-examination, everything that we think that this case must go in favor of our client, that is the petitioners, or the respondent. That's how it's going to be like. Then we apply. Why should it be so? Then we apply the law. Go back into the law books and then seek all the law that is relevant to say that as far as the legal processes go, by normal precedent, this is how you should judge it.
You may not find too much case law in this country. Will you go beyond the borders of Ghana in looking for cases to support?
Oh yes, if we don't,
right,
yes. If we don't have what do you call it, case law or precedent or prior cases like this ahead, then you go outside on various points. There will be so many issues which will come out of this. You know, even the issue of what do you call credibility. You know, the differences in where a person makes one statement in the course of cross-examination, he changes his mind or says something different. What should the court do? How should the court handle it? Should it just say for saying two things which contrary they knock off? Or that if they, for instance, that yes, the first one he said, the second one he said something different, but it's not a material matter. These are
that will be about credibility of the witness.
Credibility and all the credibility. You know, the judges have the set. They also watch the demeanor, the way the person presents his evidence, the way he answers questions. You can see a witness, you know, not in this case. I mean, a witness. No, just lying. I mean, sitting there lying after taking an oath, and you must do. No, not about this case. Not about this case. They are all honorable men who participated. Don't forget, we have 10-day rule. So we just have to watch how the judges will be watching all this, and then they will say that, look, we don't believe this story, this area, the explanation this person gave. Or that we prefer this area, you know. It's a very difficult job that the judges are called to do. But I thought that you also mentioned a question of whether anything can be done between now and then. Technically, yes. I mean, any party can come out with an application if you think that there's something should be reopened or what, if he can convince the court. But from where we are sitting as at now, it doesn't look like any application like that, it's immediately foreseeable.
For the purposes of just theoretically, normally, what would you, after a case has been closed in this manner, I cannot say closed really, because it is on the 30th that you can say for sure that it's closed for good. What kind of application may go to a court after such a process has gone into?
It's possible that you find new evidence
or something.
You find some evidence, new evidence which didn't probably exist or was not immediately available at the time. I mean, that will radically affect the case. You understand? I mean, if, for instance, you go and find some documents somewhere, that have been, you think that stolen or hidden or whatnot, which will radically affect, you can come back with a motion to try and convince the court. It's a tall order.
Okay. That reminds me of what Addison said.
Yes.
Stolen or hidden, it matters not how the document was procured. Now, Gabi, between now and then, it's going to be a very hectic preparation period, isn't it? Putting your case together.
Well, I mean, obviously, you expect that all sides, if it started, I'm sure. Mr. Chachikata gave the court the indication that he was already on his address. So, I mean, clearly, we've all seen and heard the evidence. I think what people keep asking, what is left? I mean, what is left is applying the law to the evidence and convincing the court that, I mean, bringing out what you think are the salient points and applying them to the law and convincing the court that, after all has been said and done, your case holds. Is what has been shown to be persuasive, if you like. Let's not forget that the standard really here is a balance of probabilities. There isn't any allegation of fraud. There's no threat of anybody from this case being, if you like, going to prison or that sort of thing. No criminal aspect of it.
So explain what you mean by balance of probabilities as against what you are trying to say if it were a criminal situation where you need to prove beyond reasonable doubt.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. At the end of the day, even when it comes to the evidence, they will look at the evidence. they will look at it, because the onus is on the first of all on the petitioners to prove their case. But what they are saying is that nobody's life is at stake, or freedom. So you don't have to go beyond what they call reasonable doubt. But having said that, you still have to prove your case. In a sense, if you say, for instance, that there are triplicates and you come with a pink sheet, that's your case. You've made your case. Now the EC says that no, there were no triplicates, and the EC comes with its pink sheets. Then, because once the EC says there's no triplicates, then the burden shifts to the EC.
Okay.
They now have to show to the court that indeed there were no triplicates, because you have brought evidence to that effect. So the EC's evidence is, the court will look at that and compare it to your evidence. But if the EC's evidence has a pink sheet where it writes, is written, everybody signed, rather than actually seeing the signatures on it, it raises certain evidential issues.
Okay.
So really, I think that's what it is. But I think Justice Ofeadin gave us a hint. He said we will look at the law and look at the evidence, and I thought that was a clear hint as to how the court understands its responsibility.
All right.
There's something they call the political question doctrine. Really, this is law and evidence. And when you are even evaluating evidence, it's not necessarily, you are looking at the weight of the evidence, but not the consequences of the evidence.
All right.
So you look at the evidence if you think they've made their case, and clearly this has been a case of documentary evidence.
All right.
It is not so much about what happened at the polling station, according to what I'm saying. Yes, it's what happened
on the face of the pink sheets
at the polling station, according to the official document of the Electoral Commission, the primary source of the declaration of 9 December 2012.
All right.
That's really what it is.
Except it's a little limited.
And not as far as
except that Gabby said it's a little limiting.
Okay.
Because that point was also expanded.
All right.
By the Electoral
I need to take a break at this point. When we return, we'll wrap up on this issue. And Amaba, I want you to be thinking about the issues that Gabby talks about. For example, that in the address you are seeking to apply the law to the facts. This is also an aspect that the generality of the population who have witnessed the process may not be aware. And so in their minds would have just listened to the facts and on that basis make their own conclusions. How dangerous can that be? And when we say further directions, what are we expecting on the 31st of July? We'll be right back. All right, thank you very much. This is Newsfile. Sorry, it took you by surprise. This is Newsfile. You're watching us on your Joy News channel on Multi TV and on Joy 99.
Commending him for the PR he did over the election petition, including the propaganda.
Gabi. All right. And you are also listening to us on Joy 99.7 FM and over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. I'm getting concerns from some of you that you're not getting the streaming properly. So I hope that the guys in charge of that, please get your act together and let the people get to be able to participate, those who are not within the reach of a radio but have the benefit of the internet. Thank you very much. Now, Abi, before we went for the break, and it's too bad, I'm getting messages from you, but in the spirit of the urgings that have come in here regarding the messages that we should be projecting as media people, I'm sorry, I'm unable to read the messages I have here. Too bad. I've read quite a number of them, and you are insisting on a number of things. I think that's not good enough. I was asking that, for example, when we say further directions on the 31st, what is the expectation?
I thought you first talked about applying the law to the facts.
If you can deal with this one first, or finish with that one.
Applying
the law to the facts.
Yes, that is what judges do every day in court anyway. So, for instance, you notice that the petitioners and the respondents have given evidence. Those are the factual situations. Now, they will now go into the law to see what does the law say on such matters. So let me take an example without drawing conclusions. There are issues relating to presiding officers not signing. The Constitution says that the presiding officer shall sign. Now, in applying the law, the court will look at whether in not signing, it has an effect on the vote.
Validity of the vote.
So that's the work of the judge.
Okay.
So you don't say that, oh, but we saw that the man didn't actually sign. So for that matter, it's a gospel truth. He will now have to apply the law to see what is the effect of that. So that's how the law is applied.
And even though the Constitution says the presiding officers shall sign, there can be a number of situations that makes that shall a compulsory signing, and there can be a situation that doesn't
make it
that makes that signing not compulsory. Okay.
So that is the work of the judges. And so if people are thinking that the lawyers have a Herculean task of putting together their closing addresses, they should also look at the enormity of the task ahead of the judges too.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, in respect of the addresses also, there's this talk about you having to file it simultaneously, and that too is a certain tricky situation. What is this about it? And I've heard some suggest, and I also suspect myself, that the petitioners and the respondents are not likely to file the addresses before the 30th day, the deadline.
You mean they will not be able to meet the deadline?
They are not likely to do it intentionally before the 30th.
Strategically.
These are strategies.
It makes sense.
I'm sure both sides would have their ears at the registry to find out have they come to file. Have they come to file?
And what's the purpose?
Wanting to sneak into what is in there and, as it were, program their own answer to buttress what they have said. So these are strategies, you can't take it away. Okay. Even though they are saying that we should file simultaneously, you can be sure that they won't file it on the same day. But
really? Except the 30th.
Oh, they can't. You have from now or whenever they go to 30th. You can go on the first day. He can go on the last day. So it's within.
But from what you have said, the suspicion.
Okay,
let me hear that.
If I may just explain, I mean, just quickly, you know, when you get to the qualification stages in football, you know, there's a time where they decide that the matches should be played on the same day, you know, so same time, you know, to equalize. I mean, I can understand a situation where they will say that each one will want to know what is in the other's address so they can respond in yours, you know. So everybody will be hedging, waiting. But then one thing is clear, that you can't hedge beyond 30th.
All right.
So you may hedge until the two of us, until the two of us find that there's 30th and we both file the same day.
Okay.
And, you know,
Tony Litter's suggestion or request to the court that they should be giving an opportunity to, after that, be able to file replies.
Good.
Would that cure that thing?
Good. And that is what would happen when we go back to court on the 31st.
Okay.
If that prayer from Tony Litter is accepted, then it will cure the mischief that would have been cured by hedging and playing delay tactics to find out what is in there. Because that will give an opportunity, and that will even help the court. Because that will give an opportunity for each side to counter the arguments of each other. And then we'll then narrow the whole issue to just one single thing, and the judge will just pick it up and draw his conclusion.
Okay.
So when we go back for further directions, we'll expect two things. I'm thinking that two things. Whether there will be an opportunity for lawyers on both sides to rebut some of the legal arguments put in their addresses, and then whether it is possible to do a summary of an oral submission, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. You take 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and tell us, in essence, what you have written in your argument, so that the entire population will also follow up and know what the arguments are.
Okay. Kuku, are you expecting and are you hoping that you would have this oral arguments, opportunity for the lawyers?
If it's not going to be protracted, then that's okay. If you're not going to just give space for somebody to come and stand there and display his body language and all those things, when indeed the substance is in the written form, which the panel will be determining. So, but it's okay if 5 minutes, and if they will keep to time, then I don't have a problem with that. But there's one thing, I'm not a lawyer, and I found it intriguing. I am told, maybe it's speculative, if it is, I'm sorry, that the first respondent and the third respondent will file different addresses. I've heard this being speculated. Maybe Mr. Daisy.
With the challenge, what's the problem?
No, I haven't said it's illegal or unlawful. I haven't said that. I just said I find it intriguing. They had one witness, that is in the person of Asiru Nketia.
That is so.
And from all indications, they fought a joint battle. But it appears at this stage they want to file separate addresses. I'm not saying the law doesn't allow it. I just find it intriguing. And I was wondering, what's the big deal? Why can't it be a composite, address? You have one common agenda, and you were able to express it through one individual, one witness. What is it that will be different? It's perhaps an unnecessary gloss, even if not unlawful. That's the way I see it. That's for me the critical thing I see there. Maybe the lawyers can explain why, what value the separate addresses will bring to bear on the case of the first and third respondent.
Nana, if you can address that briefly.
I think just briefly. First of all, the idea that is clear that they are separate parties in this action. They are separate parties.
Yeah, he acknowledges
that.
Yes.
Two, they are represented by different sets of solicitors. Even though their interests may be the end may be the same, the approaches may be totally different.
Why do they have a joint witness?
Yes, I'm coming to that. Now, as a general rule, in daily practice, you go and you have 500 persons come together, with their lawyers and all that as plaintiffs. 500. You can have that much. But they can elect to have one person speak on our behalf. It doesn't detract from their right as individual represented by their own lawyers.
There'll be no duplication.
No duplication, no quadruplication.
But you also notice that in the line of cross-examination, there were emphasis on different things.
Oh, absolutely.
Chachu's line of cross-examination was quite different from Tony. And so you notice that you find Chachu hammering on certain issues. And these are the issues you want to draw the court's attention.
In the form of an address, you can still make it a composite one.
Okay.
In the form of an address.
Anyway,
maybe they're thinking that if you have the same point coming from two sides, it makes it more persuasive.
No. But you see, it is not also fair because
their lawyers,
the petitioners have
their lawyers, and they know that the multitude of
really won't count for anything.
Whatever doesn't make a fact.
But
it's a popular legal.
You don't also have to even rule out the idea of a composite. What do you call it?
Multitude of allegations.
It should be possible. It should be possible for the two sides. We will write one. But I'm saying that essentially they are separate parties and they're entitled to.
I agree, but I find it a bit intriguing. That, go ahead.
You may.
I think on the Kwaku mentioned that we don't want a protracted situation, and I think the judges themselves don't want a protracted situation. And perhaps to take the second option that you gave, which is that they'll be given an opportunity to address the court orally, and that also, in line with the culture of the court for this trial, that also allows the public to follow what is in the address. And if you look at what happened in Kenya, they had a written address, and then the court said, look, there are that many respondents, there are that many petitioners. We give you 6 hours each. Go and share it among yourselves and addresses. So I expect that if you're going to be given any opportunity to attack what is in the written address, it may not be fair for you to write it, but that could be done within the oral address, which if the court so allows.
No exchange of the documentation on that day, assuming that if the court sits, would there be an exchange of documentation?
Once it's filed.
No, once
yeah,
it's
that's what I'm
filed,
asking.
Once it's
filed and served on both
So
parties.
at least
But I think that Mr. Malema raised the point that everything is possible. That on the 30th, the judges might decide that to enable the issue be narrowed down. So if you find a counter, maybe we should exchange the documents. So that either side might have maybe
then the oral thing may not happen the same day. It may not
No,
happen the
definitely
same
not on the 30th.
Not on the 31st. Not on the 31st, rather.
Yeah, 31st.
Because the first is a Wednesday. The first is a Wednesday, and if you go by the tradition of the court, it won't happen.
All right,
sure.
It could happen Monday or even a week after.
And it is the expectation that on that day, the court will give the day for judgment.
Yes,
That's
the
the way
direction,
we
further
so.
direction,
Yeah,
and
should
the
include that.
judgment.
And without any variation, the judgment should be on the 15th of August.
Well,
According
if you
to law.
go arithmetically,
Not really. I mean, their interpretation of CI 74 in terms of that 15 days after the trial, after the hearing ends.
Well, it says
that
not
hearing,
later
not
than
later than
15
15 days
Yes.
after the hearing.
That is so.
The interpretation could be that the hearing is after the addresses.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
So
the
that
addresses, if
from
they
the
allow
31st
oral, but if they allow oral addresses, that's part of it.
Okay.
So if they say
Okay.
a week after, after the 21st,
No, you have a point.
then you are looking at 23rd August.
All right.
But they have to up to 23rd
Worst
August.
case scenario, August
And
ended.
they may not necessarily give us a date.
Right.
Because they have up to 15 days. Why would they want to also, why would they want to also...
And they are not bound by that anyway.
Lock themselves to a particular date. When
Okay,
they have
they are not
15
bound by
days.
the 15 days.
No, they are not. There's sufficient authority to show that the court is not bound by the time that is provided in the rules for delivery of judgment.
But I'm sure they would want to do that.
Okay.
I mean, the legal vacation is up.
Yeah. Okay.
And
All right.
No, but I just also mention it's not a brainwave.
They deserve a holiday.
No, it's not a brainwave, but
really do.
it is also possible for them to give a ruling or judgment
Earlier.
and
And
then
reserve the
judgment.
yeah.
That's a very exciting
Yeah.
area.
Okay.
It's possible.
But it
If,
may-
for instance, in their minds,
No, in
if
this
they are
case,
certain,
It may
one way or the
also
other.
depend
They
on how
shouldn't do
less
that.
controversial.
Okay.
Yes.
They shouldn't do that in this case.
It's a
Honestly,
very...
this
Is it-
case, they must come, give judgment, and rule
Read
this.
Okay. Now let
For good
me
reasons.
share these text messages.
Unless they give a less controversial
All right.
position like Nanado
These text messages.
Did I hear that?
Or
Okay. These messages can be shared.
Yes.
Shifman Atonso writes, I think that the petitioners have proven time and again that they are for peace. Hence, Nanado chose to go to court than to take arms. We must all maintain the peace that we are enjoying, and we should not do anything to spoil it. Thank you. Now, Don Pino writes from Mala.
That also goes for the respondents.
Okay.
Let's be fair.
Don
I
Pino
don't think
writes
they've
from
done
Malam.
anything.
He says, as peaceful as a country, as we are as a country, I can only add my voice to Pastor Mensa Otabel's prayer and wish for continuous peace, coexistence, tranquility, and national unity after the Supreme Court's final verdict. And on that point, I heard much ado about nothing about what the pastor had to say, where he actually ended by making declarations to the effect that there shall be no civil war in Ghana, that in Ghana there will be no military takeover, and then he ended by saying, by our word, there will be no bloodshed, and prayed for prosperity of the
temperature
country.
of certain media commentators very high.
Yeah, that's what I found
they
curious.
felt very
yeah.
feverish.
Okay. Anyway, now.
Yellow fever.
I'm talking about
Okay, let's not get there.
media commentators.
Okay, let's not get there.
Social commentators.
Mohammed Montala Edukrom Nima writes, the election petition commenced, he's giving us some history. The election petition commenced on the 17th of April 2013 and ended on the 17th of July 2013. It took exactly 3 months. There were 3 petitioners and 3 respondents. 3 witnesses testified for their respective parties. 3 people were summoned before the Supreme Court for contempt. 9 judges sat to hear the case. 3 times 3. Conclusively, there are 3 possible outcomes. I love that. He says, 1, Mahama remains president. 2, Nana Addo becomes president, and you are right, because that is the tenor of CI 74. And he gives the very final possible outcome. rerun of the election declared, the number 3 has always been significant in history. Interesting.
Except that...
wasn't it 4 people who were summoned?
Three were actually
3 suffered.
But 4 were summoned. Even the operative were summoned.
Except that, when did he say that the case started?
It says 17th of April.
No. My
was
record shows
12th or 16th?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, but the 16th, what happened was...
that's where we started.
Okay.
So it's interesting.
All right. You didn't identify yourself. You say, now the issue is not that NPP has no evidence, but how to accept the verdict of the judges. Okay, it should go both ways. That's what Gabi says, and you should acknowledge that. But I know God is on our side, and Ghana
and this is
will,
not just the finger of God.
And Ghana, and Ghana, I think he's speaking for Ghana, and Ghana will cross this hurdle. Thank you.
Not just the finger of God. The hands, the fist of God.
All right, the finger of God has done a few things in this election.
It spoke to a few people, I noticed.
All right, so thank you very much for your messages.
It's a polling station.
Okay, gentlemen, stop interrupting. We need to proceed to the next issue. The next issue has to do with Jida and the investigations, the revelations that have come from the investigations that were the investigative committee constituted by Elvis Afriyie Ankrah, the minister. So it was a ministerial investigative committee. They have come out with some very interesting findings, and we want to find out. The president has promised that he's going to ensure some very radical changes or reforms in that institution, but there are those who are saying he's delaying. He should be quick with it, very quick with it. I'll start with you, Gabi, on this one. Should government publish the report? That's the first question.
Well, I think really for a president who has...
If I may just give a portion of it, that 6 officials of Jida have been cited for corruption in the report. They have been cited for corruption and fraud, and they are Alhassan Tapsoba, the second National Deputy Coordinator in charge of operations, Omar Ibrahim, the Ashanti Regional Coordinator, as well as Joseph Osborne Jenny, a former National Deputy Coordinator who has resigned from Jeddah to take up a new job as a Community Relations Manager of the Ghana Gas Company Limited. The rest are King George Foucault, Bismarck Edu Ansre, and Abdullahi Badara, 2 district coordinators and a deputy. The report says they should be referred to the Attorney General's Department for Prosecution. Another management member of Jida, Betty Mensah, has also been referred to the Attorney General's Department for Prosecution. The report accuses her of taking a bribe of Ghana cedis 52,000 from the Gollywood Film Academy, which runs the Youth in Filmmaking module under Jida. One person whose name appeared twice is Tapsoba, and he comes in secondly for allegedly using fake O-level and A-level certificates to get the job. There is also questions of conflict of interest that came up, and some of the contracts are being recommended for repudiation, as it were, should be cancelled. Some of the contracts with the Zoom Lion, the Jobsbon group, and so on and so forth. Gavi, should the report be published? It's now in the bosom of the president.
Well, I think the president has been telling us that how, as soon as the Right to Information bill is passed, he will happily and quickly give his assent. And also, if really that is what he's seeking to do, I think in the spirit of that and of transparency, it would be just appropriate for them to make the facts in that document public. In any event, even if they don't, I'm sure the Kweku Bakos of this world will have it, and we'll find ways of making that public. The something actually struck me. And I've had a look at a few of such contracts under such schemes that have become very in vogue. I mean, we saw it from the NYEP, and since then there have been plethora of these things. Jida and
Zira, a number of modules.
Yes. Sontaba, all these things they've become a very...
I think Sontaba is in a different category. It's in SADA.
Okay, it's in SADA. But clearly, there are all these private entities that come with ideas, government then buys into it, and then they go ahead and do it. It is not unusual with the way things are done now across the world in terms of public-private partnership. But what struck me, and it's not just with this contract, with others that I've seen, and I know my boys at the DI were doing some publication on it. I don't know why they haven't. I haven't been to the office for a while. I'll go and find out. But let's just look at it. According to the report, government's contract with Zoomlion, for instance, allows the company to retain 400 Ghana cedis as management fees while it pays workers 100 Ghana cedis only. That's what the report says. And then
you are reading the findings portion of the report.
Yes, given the number of beneficiaries managed by Zoomlion, the company retains over 15 million every month as management fees. The committee accuses the company of making significant, this is in quote, making significant windfall profit at the expense of the taxpayer, unquote. Now, when you see this, the first thing I want to ask is, a private entity comes to you, government, with a proposal, and you negotiate, and you agree to it, for whatever reason. And if this is the findings, these are the findings of the committee that looked into it, where should the blame go? To me, that's the first issue, because I mean, in terms of the criminal acts, clearly those who are found to be criminal, deal with them. But then you are going into the contract, all right, which we agree to. Our government, we're supposed to be negotiating on our behalf. And you think there's something, now they are seeing that there's something wrong with it? Who negotiated this contract? Is there something wrong with it?
Are you saying, for example, that this one was not actually an issue for investigation because it's a contract, contractual term?
Absolutely. And like I said, I've seen worse contracts. And I've seen ones that, the details are there. I'm sure all those details will come out. So that, to me, is where we need to focus. Because we saw a lot of money. Look, a lot of funds going into all kinds of projects which were not even budgeted for. 12 November, you give 15 million to a company to supply certain things that were not even in the budget. You see, I have receipts, I have checks of hundreds of thousands of Ghana cedis being shipped from one account to the other within the last 3, 4, 5 weeks before elections. And we sit here and we are told that the country is what? Is in a stalemate, economic stalemate, because
you are talking about checks and whatever being shipped within the period, but you are not saying that they were being done fraudulently.
But I'm saying these are under all these schemes. Under all these schemes. So to me, this investigation, it's not necessarily, look, you may look at these, what are their names? Betty Mensah, of course, deal with Betty Mensah. Deal with John Osborne Jenny, who is still now he's been moved to where? Ghana Gas Company, okay? And then Tabsoba or whatever, guy was looking for a job and he said he needed a low level. So he found one. Pink shoes are being manufactured every day, so it seems to be quite usual. Anyway, but when you take all these things, deal with those people. But then there's a bigger picture.
Which is?
And that's where my focus is. It's a bigger picture as to how we accumulated 8.7 billion Ghana cedis budget deficit for 2012. That is the bigger picture we have to look at. And
What has that got to do with it?
it's got everything to do.
It's about the fourth time he's repeating this. It's his heartbeat.
He knows because, you keep hearing that word.
part of the mantra.
Because of the election petition, there's what? Economic activity and blah, blah, blah.
You don't admit that?
That is true.
My brother.
You don't admit that?
My brother. The election petition was filed 28th December.
Sure.
The budget deficit was done before that.
Preceded it.
It preceded it. What has the budget deficit got to do with the election petition? And all this, look, as we sit here, ministries are going to banks, okay, to collect loans because they are not getting money from government. All these things are happening. Because of the situation you put us in. Because you wanted to win this election by any means necessary.
Okay, so the thing is that don't insinuate, speak on facts.
Oh, I'm speaking on facts, my brother. I'm speaking on facts. There is a fact that we have 8.7 billion Ghana cedis budget deficit.
But there's no fact that that deficit is occasioned because of fraud.
It's a fact
or
that
illegal spending.
It was occasioned because we paid for things that we had not budgeted for.
Which is not crime. Which is not crime.
Let's take it step by step.
Okay.
Now, once you have paid for things that were not in the budget, and even things that were in the budget, like capital expenditure, you didn't find money for, like capitation grant, you didn't find money for, then we're going to go into, as they are doing with Jida, let them extend it. Go into all these projects. Let's look at value for money. Let's look, 95% of contracts are either sole sourcing or through selective tendering. What sort of situation are we dealing with?
Okay,
and
so
then you
just
come
hold
with
your
code
guns
of
there.
ethics and you tell us that you are fighting corruption.
Now, AB, do you think that there are quite a group of civil society, that's saying that you need this report published immediately? Are they in a hurry? Is that what you think?
They are in a hurry in the sense that, you see, there's a little bit of history about NYP and Jida. Indeed, there was an earlier committee report, the Abu Ghapele report, that indicted some officials. So even when Jida was still NYPA, these matters came up. And the coordinator, which is Abu Ghapele, decided to form a committee to deal with the matter. Indeed, he indicted some of the officials. This Alassane Tapsuba guy was part of it. But he had no authority to effect those...
When fed that to national security and those...
And then he referred it to the minister. The minister, knowing that one of his subordinates was part of it, that Alassane Tapsuba, who is an immediate to Abu Ghapele, decided to also form a committee to find out whether that can be confirmed. It was confirmed. Some of them were interdicted. Alassane was one of them. Then somehow, all of a sudden, the director at the ministry recalled Alassane. So this report, now occasioned by the current Minister of Youth and Sports, only has gone to confirm what the earlier reports have said about the NYPA and Jida matter. The report has now been submitted to the president. Indeed, we all saw it on television. The president made an initial comment on it. He said that Jida needs to be restructured.
Yeah.
That is the first step.
Let me quote him. He said that it is our intention to review and restructure Jida radically based on the report that's when Elvis was presenting, that you have presented to ensure that the objectives for which it was set up are met and met in a timely and efficient manner, and in a manner that ensures that the resources that government is committing to it give us value for money.
So nobody is in doubt with the objectives of Jida because it is a laudable program. The president is saying that...
What do you say to critics, for example, who may suggest to you that how many days has it taken since the president got this report? Do you remember how many days it took for the IOCO report on Woyome's payment? Do you remember how long it took for it to be published by the castle?
I can't remember.
Which sought to indicate that the president, late president, had no involvement and he had actually given instructions which were not obeyed.
It's not fair to compare the two. Indeed.
Why?
Because I know, I've been following this matter. when the report was submitted to the president by then was preparing to go to Abuja. And indeed, they have returned from Abuja. So it is not as if the president was not, as it were, was in the country and not acting on these matters. He has returned. Let's see what he will do on this matter. So it is in a rush for anybody to think that the president is not prepared to, as it were, put it in the public domain or to act on it. Now, restructuring, why? Because you look at Jida, and he was talking about the models. I am shocked to my bone marrow to hear that Jida has no legal department. And yet, they enter into thousands of contracts with service providers. What they do...
They don't need a legal department. They can use external solicitors.
I'm not even sure that is happening.
That's serious.
Indeed. So, you notice that most of the time, and I'm privy to this, it is the service providers who will draft their agreement and come without any legal mind. They just sign to it. And you are a lawyer. When somebody is bringing a contract, he will draft it to favor him.
Of course.
Good. So most of these things we are seeing is because of the lack of a legal department to deal with the thousands of contracts that are entered into by Jida. And that's where the president's call for restructuring is key. You talked about people who are faking results, and we need to put in place a law that would ensure that there's an act, that establishes Jida. Without these things, it's going to be difficult. And I have followed NYPA since now. The mistake we have done as a government is, having taken over from the Kufuor administration, we should have put in some mechanisms to engineer the process. We just took it hook, line, and sinker and started rolling with it.
Is that a problem?
Yes.
They took Jida too from.
Hold on.
NYPA was started by you.
No.
That's one.
Gabi
knows what.
Sorry. How is that the problem? That you took it on and you didn't re-engineer anything?
We didn't re-engineer it. Because when you look at what the president is saying, that we need to ensure that Jida works to achieve the objectives for which it was set.
But when you took over, you have since introduced so many modules.
No, it's just enlarging the models. But really, the structure of models, those models was not different from what we inherited. And so we just went ahead with the old ways of doing things. You see, officials of Jida,
Murtala Mohammed would disagree with you because he was at the forefront of making sure that there was communication about some of the reforms that were going on in Jida, in NYEP.
Murtala will look at it from a purely non-legal aspect of it. I have given you an example. Murtala cannot dispute the fact that there's no legal department in that place. He can't dispute it. And I'm saying that, look at how people are employed into Jida. What are the qualifications that we need to ensure that people occupy such positions? There's nothing of that nature. So you find square pegs in round holes. And that is one of the bane of Jida. I think that if the restructuring comes, one of the things I recommend is a legal department because of the enormous contracts they enter into. Private-public partnership has come to stay, and we cannot run away from it. We need a department that will be sifting through these things. And when we are able to do that, most of these things will not happen. I think that Jida is a good project, but we need restructuring to make it work.
Kwaku, the committee certainly does not have the capacity to do what a court will do in determining truly who is guilty of corruption and could clear somebody of corruption or punish the other person of the same thing. Do you agree that a swift prosecution process is important to finish this matter properly?
Prosecution is always important. That's enforcement of the laws that we've put in place. And if people violate those laws, the prescription or the cure for that mischief is prosecution. But first and foremost, I think in the name of greater transparency and accountability, the report should be made public quickly. It's critical. Yes, it's true the president received it and exited immediately. But I think he could have authorized its publication so that as early as possible.
You see, we need himself. So he needs to study it before.
You see, there will be no, yes.
He must be sure of what he's seeing.
No.
Before he yes. Let's hear Kweku make his point.
No. We need to have that report published immediately. It is to help informed discussions of the problem. Once you held a media event and received the report, and already some media houses, particularly yours, appears to have intercepted some details and are making it public. And this is why we are discussing. We need an informed discussion. So the report must be made public quickly. Let us by Monday or Tuesday, we must have the report.
But Abraham makes a point. You don't think it is legitimate that the president ought to have the full benefit before the release? Because this issue actually came up in the Yoko report that was released.
Publishing the report would not disable the president from doing a critical study of the contents of the report. Otherwise, you see, we are already here discussing. Reputations of individuals, companies, including government itself, are at stake. For an informed discourse, get the report out. It's critical. This is not any secret thing, okay, or a security import that should be classified. It's not a classified report. Because there's an ongoing analysis and scrutiny, I think it will help government itself in order to take us out of the realm of speculation and possible distortions of the findings. Let's have the report. That's the first thing. But I think that, you see, Gabi went for the core issue. Are we really suggesting that as we speak, we don't have laws that deal with contracts? We do. We don't have laws that deal with management of the finances, public funds? We do. So that's the first thing to look at, the context. And that's why I want the report, because I am aware that even before the committee was set up, certain contracts and payments for certain contracts were suspended. I'm aware of that. And that's why I want to see the report and see whether there is any tallying of the same. But the point is this. As we speak, we have laws. The Financial Administration Act is there. Financial Administration Regulation is there. The Public Procurement Thing is there. We have the laws. These laws must guide how we enter into contracts, we negotiate contracts, and where we pick monies from the public funds. There are procedures. There is a level of approval. So who did what, when, and where? Within the context of the existing laws. Okay, that's the substance. And that is where you will see that indeed some MDAs or MMDAs are themselves part of the problem.
Okay.
And these small fishes that have been mentioned, they may have violated the law as well. And the law is no respecter of persons. So they may get their due share of sanctions. But substantively, we may be dealing with a systemic and an institutional matter.
Gabi says something and you appear to support. There's a question here from Kojo Achireko. He says, how can people blame Zoom Lion for the corruption at Jida? The company was giving an offer, it accepted it. So if you have complaints, put it to those who are managing the program, period. Do you support that argument to say, do you support that argument to say that for as long as, you know, they submitted a contract and it was agreed to, if it is found later that the contracts are quite, you know, unreasonable?
No, if you find out the contracts do not fall in line with the law, the processes, the procedures and things that the law has established, the state has every right to go do a review or even suspend or cancel. That's not a problem at all. That's why I said let's look at the substantive legislation that guides contracts and negotiations for contracts and also funding of projects that the state has interest in. We have procedures. We have levels of procedures you must follow. There's a level of approval. We have approval authorities that approve. Okay? For instance, I read somewhere, and I'm not sure, that's why I want to see the report. Is it not the government or the MDAs who determine the level of allowances the beneficiaries received? Is it not? Yes. the authority to determine the allowances was vested in government through its MMDAs. So if those allowances were that small or, insulting to the dignity of the beneficiaries, who are we to blame? To be honest with you,
maybe there were other beneficiaries.
Well, so the investigation ought to go in that direction as well. But here we are incapacitated by the fact that we don't have the full details of the report, the findings.
What explanation do you take for example, for Zoomlion taking 400 as management fees and paying 100 out of it to the beneficiaries or the workers?
I don't have the competence to determine that, because first of all, I don't even know what went into the contract. I don't know the things that Zoomlion, they were implementers. They may also have been providing some facilities and logistics. I do not, as I sit here, know the cost value. I haven't done any cost analysis in this matter. So it would be presumptuous on my part really to give you an answer.
Right.
But broadly speaking, when government was entering into that contract, it went with its eyes wide open. Okay?
But you could have your eyes, but if you lack the technical...
No, I'm coming.
Whole government?
Let me
We're
finish.
talking about whole government.
Let me finish.
You
I was talking
and that's why I'm talking about the
I was
legal
coming
department.
to this point of legal department. The AG department is there to service all the MDAs if they don't have legal departments. Look, the thing was between private partners and the MMDAs, especially Ministry of Local Government is involved in this thing. Don't they have a legal department? Are you telling me that you signed the contract without any legal input? Then what is the Attorney General's department there for? Even if you don't have. So that's not an excuse. Even though, yes, I agree, as you build, restructure, you may decide that let's give this particular
But the
organization.
agreement was between government and
Yes, it was. So it could not have been
don't
without
reduce
legal
it to
input.
Jida or Jida or whatever it is.
Okay.
Now, the local government authority or whatever, the Ministry of Local Government, they dealt with these things.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
And the youth and sports and the rest of them. So,
Yes. They all have
Attorney
legal
General.
departments.
So really, let's not reduce it to Jida.
What do you,
with your eyes wide open.
what do you say about the figures, huge, that are being thrown out there, that a company is making as much as 15 million Ghana cedis as windfall profit every month?
Approved by
on
who?
this?
Approved by government. So what are you talking about?
Does it
the
sound to you that
continent?
this is an unconscionable contract?
Well, it depends upon what they are doing, what the service that they are rendering. I mean, figures, 15 million, whatever may sound so huge to us, but it depends upon the kind of job that they are doing. And you are at government level, we may be talking about large sums indeed. But I would want us to, move the debate a little up. Kweku just been talking, yes and no at the same time. He talks about the unavailability of the report, and for that matter, he doesn't want to delve into it, which I completely share, except that he ends up going into the details. I think no. I'm saying that I think we should be consistent.
Let me make an example. For instance, sources of funding. I'm told some of them was this community service tax, GET fund, district assembly common fund. Don't we have the legislative instruments guiding how to use this fund?
I'm saying that I agree.
So that's where I went.
Yes, I said I agree with the point you're making, except that really we should also exercise a bit of patience. I think we are also stampeding the process a bit. This was essentially a ministerial report. It's not a presidential inquiry. It's the minister who convoked that inquiry. So the report will necessarily come to the minister. At that level, he will handle it and deal with it. However, there are one or two issues which happen to be above the minister or ministerial intervention. So you need presidential clearance, you see. That is why the minister presented the report to the president. It wasn't like the committee was presenting the report to the president. So there are certain things that the minister, even as at now, should be doing. Whether the report has been published or not, he should be doing some reform, some whatever the issues which he must be referring to for prosecution or investigation, you should go ahead.
Some say the minister has done well, ought to be commended because the investigation he did was of an extensive nature.
Yes.
Otherwise, the investigations had been done. There was one, there was a second one. National security, we are told, was involved. And all of these, no action was taken on them. He comes, now does it, and presents it to the president. But until action has been taken, prosecutions take place, the radical reforms the president is talking about take place, we should not be in a hurry to applaud
That's
him.
exactly the point I'm making. I'm saying that some of the things that you are talking about, the minister at this stage can carry on, as we say. Now, there are certain matters which, are properly within the purview of the president. That is the issues of reform and whatnot. You are talking about policy, state policy. The minister alone cannot handle it. These are an executive presidency. There's a president who will have to decide what do we do with this establishment. Look, the very idea, I remember Kweku said that this very idea of Jida and whatnot, they are great ideas. These are social interventions. Social interventions always have, problems flowing out from them because of the rather easy way that they start. You want to, university graduates are unemployed. What do? You try and create, openings for them. That's the kind of thing. Now, the president will be looking at the bigger picture. For instance, there's this, Jida itself, where should it be placed? Jida is under youth and sports now. You understand? Clearly, when you talk about youth and sports and you put Jida there, then you don't want Jida to start. So you are talking about social welfare. You understand? You labor, social welfare, that's where Jida should really belong. So the president must be looking at the issue. Should we place Jida, for instance, take it out?
It's been under the employment ministry before.
Yes, exactly. So should we put it back to social welfare? Because where an establishment is can influence it. If you go and put Jida, for instance, under finance or Ministry of Education, then sure, that thing should happen.
I need you to help me because I'm not getting what difference it makes.
No, what it makes is the core mandate of the ministry, which affects the what do you call it?
Whether there's corruption or not.
What area? Because if I'm saying, if you put it under finance, for instance, and finance, they have so much more on their plate dealing with the financial intermediation.
So that's what you're saying. Sports cannot give them the sufficient attention.
That motherly thing. So it should move, and I suspect that it's one of those establishments which will move to say social welfare, where they have the environment, the facility, the people trained. The structure itself is being said.
People are trained at the social welfare not to take bribes.
No. I'm saying that the restructuring. You see,
attempt to restructure.
It is
the problems as have been, exposed by the committee are corruption matters.
No, but what I'm saying is that the corruption matter, I think Kweku hit it right on the head. There are laws in this country. Just let the laws operate. You see, you don't need the president to come and do it. So if there's an investigative report that's presented to a minister, and there are certain issues which are clearly bordering on corruption and abuse of office and whatnot, that one you don't need the president to direct.
just spoke about, not in the same words, the lack of political will to deal with those who had been indicted by the previous committees.
Well, I'm saying, I've told you that I have a problem even with the so-called leaked report. You see, what we are reading, even though we are all saying that the report has not been published, the president has not published, he's holding it and all that, everybody is reading something. So I don't know which report you need to be published again. You got me? But the reality is that I don't think that it is safe, even at this stage, to go into these details. You may turn out to not be wholly correct. That is the position I'm taking.
That's why you should publish the report.
That's why I'm saying I agree with you that your call, that yes, I agree that as early as possible, the report must be released. For me, really, I don't think that what they are saying is one huge embarrassment to anybody. If a committee has been set up by a minister, and he expects these things to happen.
I'll take a break at this point. When I return, I want you gentlemen to also look at the question of whether or not some liability should be fixed on those who commence the earlier investigations but refuse to take action on them. We'll be right back. All right, thank you very much for keeping your dials here on Joy 99.7 FM. This is also your multi-TV Joy News channel. And, okay, Nana Tudazi is asking if what I'm wearing is pink shirt. And I wear it proudly from Latida. Nana is saying it's for me. Well, you have to be on top of the fashion world with the latest in Latida's men's and women's ladies' designs in African prints and linen dresses. Looking good and sharp is what they pride themselves in. They have their 2013 designs of men's shirts and ladies' dresses in African prints and which are out and selling very fast. I can testify to that because right after the show, some of you will still have to call me. You don't take note of the number here.
Your producer, has he got one here?
Yes, you have to be in vogue. Don't be left out in the latest men's and ladies' outfits. They are affordable, and that's the hallmark of Latida. Contact them on 026 56 50 918, 026 56 50 918, or 020 433 6444, 020-433-644 for your orders and deliveries.
It's now, before he gets in one for free.
Yes. Okay, Gavi, don't confuse me. Now, Atta Imoro writes from Wellency. He says the presidency owes it a duty to make public the Jida report and to ensure that those implicated in the report are punished no matter who is involved. I share the view that it is actually also in the interest of those indicted that the matter quickly goes to court because they may be cleared. Bonti Benjamin writes, Jida offices across the country must be closed until the recommendations in the report are implemented fully, or else the deep-rooted cabal which initiated and saw to it that their dream was to milk the Jida's coffers dry comes to light, would still take advantage of the system. Ghana deserves better, if not best. Zachariah Yahaya writes, it is only in today's Ghana that people who mismanage our resources entrusted to them are giving deputy ministerial appointments.
Who is
are we safe? Like okay. Like that. All right. So you are being asked to you are being asked to say it boldly. Okay.
There's nobody like that.
I hope that Yaya is not related to my producer Yaya. Jida was a good initiative by the previous administration to alleviate the suffering of the unemployed youth, but some people who were to serve us created, looted, and shared. Sounding like Justice Doshe. Prince Kojo Achireko Helsinki writes, how can people blame Zoom Lion for the corruption at Jida? The company was giving, okay, that message, you put it on Facebook and I read it. Kweku Safu Ade writes, Samson, ask Kweku Baku to refresh my mind. What was the cost of the thank you tour taken by President Mahama after the burial of the late President Mills? The 1 year celebration is just dawning. All right. Zakaria Safiano writes, although the investigation revealed the damning corruption and fraud in the system, that was not secret to some of us in the first place. I thought the investigation were inadequate, and I find it difficult to believe that all the regional coordinators of the scheme were left off the hook. I see. Samuel Brian Boabing Awoshi writes, if Ghanaians are expecting any prosecution by John Mahama on the Jida findings, then please hold your horses, because the kettle can never tell a pot is black. Okay. All right. You got to be speaking about facts. That's what I'm interested in. Now, Kojo writes.
Isn't it true that a kettle can't tell the pot that
So
is
who is the kettle here?
Okay.
No, I mean,
Kojo, this is a message that's been repeated. This one, no name, says, once again, I want to thank Joy FM for dropping the hint about the rot in the NYEP and going ahead with serious investigations. Okay, that investigation was done at the instance of the minister, which has given the government no option but force the hands of government to do what is actually, in fact, it has to do. We are all on the fence and watching with keen eagle eyes. I'll take a last one from Shaibu Jibril, who is sending this one from Town Council line. He says, let me commend the sports minister for setting up the committee that investigated the activities of Jida and the various modules under it. My prayer is that the president will go by the committee's recommendations and prosecute all those found culpable so we can send signals to those who think they can exploit the poor or chop Ghana's money. Thank you very much for your messages. On that note, I now ask the question, Abi, there are, and you noted that, there were investigations that were done earlier. The investigation didn't show anything different from what we have now. These were superintended by two previous, leaders. They didn't do anything about them. Only to say, well, it wasn't within our power, we couldn't have done so and so. Should they also not be taken to task?
No. You know what was wrong with those?
They could have done what Elvis has done.
No. You know what was wrong with those two previous committees? Those who have been indicted now were claiming that they were not given an opportunity to be heard. And the rules of natural justice require that before you punish somebody, you give him a hearing. And it's not for nothing that God had to ask Adam and Eve, why are you eating of the fruit? When he knows that he will punish them. So indeed, because of that, those two reports were difficult to as it were, implement. And so I think that this committee set up by the...
Are you sure those reports would have come to the public through government agencies or the initiative of the government if it is not by investigative processes that were launched by media houses?
No, those ones that Abuga Pele's report and then the minister's committee report...
I'm saying all of these came out because of Manasseh Azori Awone and Joy FM.
Well, good, but it's not as if it is Manasseh Azuri's report that led to an initial investigation into the matter.
That's correct.
Good. So, because those two reports were fraught with what I would call procedural impropriety, this committee, set up by Elvis Efri Ankara, the Honorable, sought to ensure that all those matters will be put to rest. And so these persons were actually invited by the committee. Indeed, there were people whose name have not been mentioned here, who I know appeared before the committee. And so this was more of a thorough and comprehensive investigation. Now we are at this point. This is a report that, for me, is a true reflection of what happened in Jida. What we should be looking out for is that, will this committee report be implemented? And I dare say that it will, because in the first place, the government wouldn't have even instituted a committee to look into the matter if it felt that the committee's report would indict the government. There were two previous reports.
Oh, really?
Yes. It wouldn't have done that. There were two previous reports that indicated that there were some rot in the system.
Are you getting what Gabi is suggesting?
No. He's trying to distract me. I won't allow him to distract me.
He's saying
yes.
to you that you are saying that if government knew that the investigations will indict its own, it would not have set it up.
I'm saying that government wouldn't have set up this committee.
No government.
This government.
No government.
No, this government wouldn't have set up this committee if it knew that the report would not be good for it. It wouldn't have set up this committee and still go ahead and ask that the committee should work.
Are you suggesting the government is in the habit of covering up things?
Government doesn't want to cover. Because government doesn't want to cover, it set up the committee.
But if it affects government would cover.
No. No,
Is that
because
a
government
logic?
did not intend to cover.
Now you are explaining yourself.
Because government does not intend to cover.
Gabi is taking you along certain part. You will not get
So
it.
because the government doesn't intend to cover, and there were some 2 previous reports that were not good for government still went ahead and set up this committee because it did not intend to cover. That's the point I want to make. Now, we are at this point. The president has indicated clearly that we need restructuring. Part of the restructuring is for him to, as it were, implement the recommendation of the report. What is the implementation? Is to get some of these persons who have been mentioned to be prosecuted. And indeed, the report has indicated that they be referred to the Attorney General's Department. I cannot for once see why people are insinuating that the president or for that matter, this government will not go the full haul to get these people indicted or prosecuted. Because I have heard the president in another platform indicating that the Attorney General should take up the Auditor General's report and look at all those who have misappropriated funds or have misconducted themselves and then prosecute them. That is not different from this report. He has a track record. And I'm sure in the coming days, the president will make a bold statement on these persons. So let's be rest assured. This is not something that can be covered, and the government does not intend to cover it.
I see. Nana, I cut you short at a point before I went for the break. I'd like you to finish on the point of your recommendation, even though you agree with Kweku that because the report is not fully available to us, and also because you are talking largely about contracts that were entered into by these people, and so it's not really much about somebody having done something that is untoward. We shouldn't belabor that point. But the key issue that I put to him is what should not happen to the previous ministers who superintended the other previous investigations.
Yeah, thanks very much for coming back. I don't want to be misunderstood. It's a question of weighting, how much weight you give to this and how much weight you give to that. I'm saying that the investigative, prosecutorial issues are there. The laws of this country are there. So no matter who is in power, if the crime has been committed, we should go on. We should, strengthen our institutions to be dealing with it. Last my colleague said, there are so many reports which are lying down, which probably over the years, if not. You remember I was mentioning that there was a report about, a deputy minister who had, put up 3 million cedis those days, mangoes, planted at the wrong season, but, at the wrong time. And then it withered. So 3 million lost and all that. All these things are matters which will have to be looked at one point in time. But I'm saying that there's a bigger picture which we must be looking at. And that the bigger picture is what the core mandate of Jida. What do we want to do? What do we want to get out of Jida? Do we want to say that because some people were put in the position, they misconducted themselves, so Jida should be abandoned? If you don't take care, we'll lose focus.
Nana, if you
That's what I'm saying.
Put you on the spot. If you were a manager of an entity,
yes,
and you found out sometime that some people you have put in management positions have uncovered some rot and refuse to act, you would just say it's okay, let's move on?
Well, you see, I think that we must understand government and how it operates, and that is there are levels of sanctions which are inflicted on public officers. It's not all that means taking the person to the court, prosecuting him, and all that. Even removing an officer from his position, for certain reasons, will obviously be amount to some sanctions. You understand? So that is why an unperforming, just a minute, an unperforming.
Mr. Humado is in office.
Well, I'm saying that. Well, I think that the report. We'll go through the report. I'm saying that going through the what do you call it? An unperforming government. Let me put it. An unperforming government is removed by the people of this country. That itself is a sanction, and we must get that one right. You see, now where the non-performance amounts to a crime, if it can be defined as a crime, then there we will proceed, to go into prosecution. That is why this whole law about causing financial loss, comes up. And it is a very controversial, area of the law, I was prosecuted. I thought that it was absolutely unnecessary at the time. Okay. You understand? Okay. So I'm just saying that it's a very difficult area. But then, let us walk. No, that's right. You got off. I shouldn't have been there in the first place. Let me. So basically, I would say that we shouldn't be derailed. Focus should not be derailed by the prosecution issue. 2, the prosecution issues, nobody should attempt to interfere with them. Let it go ahead. And then 3, the president will, at this time, has an opportunity to look at the picture, bigger picture, and then do the realignment, in such a way as to give Jida, to empower Jida properly so that it can deliver. We need probably more Jidas.
Okay, if you have a few short statements you want to make, Koku and Gabi, quickly, and then we'll move on to try and look at the calls for the inquiry into the market fires. The President, John Kufuor, has also put in a word. We'll look at that. So, but if you have some few words.
Mine is simple. When you look at the facts and you look at this sort of preponderance of these modules, being given priority over things that ordinarily budgets should deal with, like education and health and capital expenditure and the rest of it, especially in 2012. And you see how these things are growing. I call them election treating modules. What I would expect to be done, it's for government to call for a complete overhaul and investigation to all these things, including even SADA. Because we've seen what has happened with SADA. And these are all these sort of quasi-government or non-government systems or whatever that have been put in place. And a lot of things are being done through them.
Yeah,
and it
strictly speaking, we haven't seen what has happened with SADA. Investigations are on.
But we've seen the amounts that were spent.
Okay.
No, they were spent.
Yeah, as for the amounts, they are not in question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But clearly, and it appears to be an area that we want to go more and more in terms of how public funds are used. And it's important that we take holistic, as they call it, look at it and see how these things can be done. Because there seems to be some sort of, if you like, accountability deficit. You don't know how far to blame government or even those who are managing it. So there's a serious accountability deficit. Unless, of course, these schemes are planned to do something, i.e. to take away our money and go and spend, especially if it's election year.
Okay.
But let's have a general look at them and deal with them, because a lot of the expenditure, the unbudgeted for expenditure of last year went into these schemes.
Okay. There are people who are sending in messages and saying that they are surprised that the regional coordinators or the various local coordinators have been left off the hook. They think that some of them are culpable. Kuku?
But we haven't seen the full report. That is one reason why I want to see the full report.
But the report actually indicated that day in, day out, they find new revelations.
Yeah.
And that
if they were given the whole year to investigate every day, they would find some problem.
We should not fuel this rumor-mongering thing. You see, these are public documents. They've gone to the president.
All right.
Let us have the document published.
Let's hear Kuku.
Yeah, we need a report to do an informed discussion. But look, truth be told, there's also an element, and perhaps it didn't start today, but it perhaps deepened, of political patronage, cronism.
Oh, is this key?
You're now seeing
I was careful. I said it didn't start today, but it deepened along the line. In terms of employment and recruitment of the personnel to man the administrative and management wings of these institutions, I think it got deepened along the line. And it leads to lack of discipline. It affects the political will to discipline people who err or violate the code of conduct or the rules and regulations. And I'm sure within the management sector, as well as the regional coordinating center, this was key. you know, to be honest with you. So I hope that when the restructuring comes in, we will depoliticize this kind of employment and recruitment exercise. It is not peculiar to this government. Let me be restate it.
Thank you.
It's part of a subculture.
Of immunity.
It's affected Ghana for a very long time.
Okay.
So that is the key point. Then the sources of funding also we should be clear, should be consolidated, should be centralized. What I mean by centralization is that we should identify the sources of funding and make sure that they are clear. Okay? This thing of multiplicity of the sources, the service tax, the GET fund, district assembly common fund, all being available, and people applying it without even going through the appropriate procedures. It's part of the...
Okay. And then I was asking about all the others who have superintended the other investigations, because we are aware that some audits that were conducted, you know, by the Mills-led administration in 2009 and 2010 discovered lots of irregularities and malfeasance at NYEP and Jida, particularly on Zoom Lion. But it appears that that report has also not seen the light of day. Now, if I may start with you, Kuku, the former president, John Ejekum Kufuor, has, you know, added his voice to calls for, especially calls by the minority in Parliament, for the setting up of a presidential commission of inquiry into the recent market fires. What do you say?
Well, I haven't thought deeply about that suggestion. I'm not too sure if I'm in agreement as I speak. Unless we are looking at a broader picture, not just the market fires or the fires that have happened, but we're looking at how we construct our markets, we construct town and country planning, and equip the kind of fire fighting education that we give to the generality of the population, as well as even the fire service itself, what they ought to do, looking back at all the various reports over the years, in order to move forward, but not exactly just the recent market fires, and with the bringing up about the presidential commission on that. So I'm not sure the trust of the suggestion that the former president was making. I haven't really deeply thought of it. But before that, what is the status of the investigative reports of the recent fire reports? Where are they? This whole arson charge. Apparently we have an army of arsonists out there. Eh? Yeah. Where is that report?
But we are told that that report corroborated, you know, the earlier statements by the president and others that arsonists may have been involved.
Out of respect for the president, I would not say anything offensive. But look, we are not kids. If so, bring the report. Why do you keep people wondering whether even the president spoke the truth or not? Why do we do that to ourselves?
And the prosecution is having difficulty in court.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. You see what is going on in court? We all sat here not too long ago and said that the court opportunity will help us to be able to come to a better judgment of all this speculative, I nearly said nonsense. Okay? So what are we doing to ourselves? Before the presidential commission, please, we want a disclosure on the reports that have been done, the fires that have been done, the investigative reports. And then two, we need to know at least look at the poverty of the prosecution, to the extent that the judge has threatened. Look, you talk of arson, you talk of investigations that led you to arrest suspected arsonists, and you go to court and 3 weeks you are having this challenge to the extent that a judge is threatening to free them or bail them.
The judge has given the second and final warning.
It reminds me of the Rocco Frimpong, the disaster, the ineptitude that went into the Rocco Frimpong thing and many other classic cases. We don't do this injustice to ourselves. This country is better placed to deal with this matter in a more professional manner. I'm highly disappointed. I'm being honest with you. Highly. So let's stop talking of that arson thing if we are not prepared to bring anything of evidential value to back it. I don't want to continue talking. I may start being sounding offensive.
Well, I think we could need a bit of response.
Start with AB. Okay. You wanted to respond to some of the things he said?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Kweku sounds, fairly...
He's fast.
Yes, I know. Well, he sounds passionate in this matter, and I can understand him. Really, the President Kufuor's call, I think that it's in the right direction, because there's a need for a global overview of all that is happening. We must look at what is happening in a more global way. When sitting around this table...
He's not asking for a committee. He's asking for a commission.
Yes,
presidential commission.
Absolutely. Understand. I'm saying that sitting around this table just before when the first fires opened, and the Americans.
Because of what Kweku just said, let me take a bit of a quotation from President Kufuor. He said, "We want to know why there are fires all over the place these days. We want to know if the fires are just accidents or if there is some devil in the works causing confusion for our nation. We can only do this through investigations, thorough investigations, and it is only the state that can do such an investigation."
Yes.
So yes. You didn't say presidential commission.
That's what by the report. That's what he asked for.
No. I'm saying that. I mean, no one can fault.
Sorry, because you're supporting the minority. The minority's position is for a presidential commission.
I see. Yes. You see, I'm saying no one can fault President Kufuor for calling for a presidential inquiry into this. You see, the point that I was taking with Kweku is that to say that some suspected arsonists have been taken to court and we are having challenges with bringing up evidence, so it means that, probably means that arsonist theory is not true. I think it's unfortunate because going to court is one thing. Getting the evidence together can be another thing. I have seen judges who have said, "Sorry, I believe that you did the thing, but the evidence didn't come up." So, but we have to.
Banana, you have to be sure before you even go to court.
I'm saying that there are constraints. You see, you must also be fair to the Attorney General's department. There are constraints. They don't just go up there. We know under our constitution, you must bring a person into court within a very short time. You understand? I mean, no, but investigation can take a long time. Yeah. That's the point that I'm making. And the expectation is go to take the person to court. We want to see what's happening. I think that
court is not easy.
But I'm saying that sitting around this table, you remember, we laid so many reasons why market fires could be coming up. You remember, we're talking about possible, negligence of the women themselves. Right. The institutional setup, like fire service.
The naked wiring and all of that.
But there was no consensus on arson.
Including arsonists.
Well, you included it. I did not.
Of course, I did.
I wanted the court
but you keep excluding that thing.
I wanted the court to prove that.
So if you have a bigger body like that, it will look at all these factors, and then including even local government, the regulations. At what time should the market be closed? Should people be allowed to be sleeping in those sheds and all the cooking there? There's so many things. So I really will say that yes, to that extent. But that does not mean that, like I keep saying, what is crime is crime.
All right.
So if there are arsonists doing this, they must be prosecuted.
That's a good note to end on.
You cannot prosecute them.
I was bringing you in when Nana came in.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
No, I don't think there's a need for a presidential commission. We have a lot of reports. Indeed, the recent fires have their own report. This, I need to be corrected. There was a report that was given to the president, I'm sure of that. And that was conducted by a state institution, the National Fire Service. So if a state institution conducts such an investigation, where lies the call for the state again to do another investigation? Are we saying that we don't trust the National Fire Service to do that? The Presidential Commission is unnecessary again because when you look at areas where fires have gutted markets, the National Fire Service has provided reports as to how to curtail those fires. You call the PRO of the national, he will tell you that the district assemblies are replete with these reports.
His problem is that they are not acting or implementing
So
these
fine.
reports.
So it doesn't call for a presidential commission. Let's implement those reports. There are plethora of reports on market fires. On the issue of failing to prosecute arsonists, because Koku is saying that for 3 weeks now they have not been able to successfully prosecute them, or find it difficult to even level charges against them. Look, there's a difference between what is true and having the ability to adduce evidence to support what is true. Yes, look, I'm saying that, yes.
What would have been your position if those suspects were your clients?
It may be true that they have done it, but the fact that there's no... Yes.
It may.
Yeah, because we don't know now. It may be true that he has done it,
to court for that charge?
but there's no evidence to show. That doesn't mean that there is no arsonist equation in the whole scheme.
It's still speculative.
You understand? Look, when we're children...
You don't go to court when you don't have the evidence.
Yes, I agree with you, but evidence gathering takes time. You can be in court whilst new evidence come up.
So you agree they should be granted bail whilst they are...
For bail is a human rights issue. For bail, as a lawyer, the first point would have been to call for bail whilst investigations continue. But that is not to say you should leave them to go off the hook.
All right. We should not allow state authorities to bring about this culture of arresting before investigating.
Gabi?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, to me, the call for a presidential commission will be superfluous if it's limited to finding out whether it's by accident or there's an arson behind it. Yeah. I think, to me, I think really that's not what we need a presidential commission for. Look, we need to be guided by history, not necessarily our own history. UK, 1660, they had Great Fire. It destroyed the city of London. 19th century, they were having fires everywhere. And they realized that it's because of unplanned development, unregulated development.
That's what it is.
That's really, and they began to deal with them. They looked into the slums and began to deal with the slums.
I agree with
I heard, I think, isn't PR or the fire service saying that what happened in Abuja was a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah,
so what's the point in having
a
fire brigade?
Development.
If the fire brigade can see that this is a disaster to happen, about to happen, and then they will let it be until the disaster happens, and they come to tell us that they knew there was a disaster waiting to happen.
You said so. You said it wasn't so.
So, and if you're asking for a presidential commission that will look at compulsory insurance against fires for these public places, stuff like even laws dealing with health and safety, regulations, criminal law of arson. We don't really have a criminal law of arson, do we?
I'm not sure.
No, we don't. We don't.
We don't. It should be clear.
Yeah.
How we, and I saw that. I mean, I had a role to play. The MPP manifesto of 2012 spoke about standardized way of building marketplaces. Have about 3 or 4. I mean, these are the things that we have to be looking at. How we build our lorry parks, how we build our marketplaces. Because at the end of the day, we should see these things as opportunities to change the way things are done. And that's how every country dealt with them. Go through now you can Google and find all these things. That's how they dealt with it. Get rid of the slums, gives you an opportunity to do that. Change how marketplaces are built. Because at the end of the day, if you do it that way, it can, especially for the markets, it's not just throwing money away. Yeah. You can do it in a way that makes commercial sense, because those markets generate income every day. Okay? It may mean spending a bit of money. Government can do that. You take taxes from them. The market women, for instance, they have their kits. You can build a little creche around the corner. They can run it themselves. So there are all sort of things that can be done. And let's use this disaster, if you like, as an opportunity to change how things are done. And if we're going to have a presidential commission, that's where we should focus. Not on this sort of political nonsense about whether there's an arsonist behind it or not.
Gabi,
let's look at it. We can investigate that, but it shouldn't be.
No, Gabi, I think that, sir, just 1 minute. I think that like we were saying, we go along fairly well. Except that you see, they must also. There's a need for educating or re-educating our own people, our own cultural practices, the way we sell. Kaneshi Market, for instance, was built, and for years, the building was there. The people were still selling outside. You understand? Maybe the construction, the style, the way it was done. You understand? So, but along the line, we shouldn't allow some people, some arsonists, also to be running off because we are looking at the bigger picture.
I don't know why people feel uncomfortable when they talk about arsonists.
Arsonists must be prosecuted.
Why do you feel uncomfortable? When you are saying that there are arsonists, why do you feel uncomfortable? What's the problem?
Gentlemen, we are running out of time.
If they are arsonists, they must be prosecuted.
Yes. It's a matter of hearing this thing all the time without any anything of evidential value back in
it. Don't we hear things all the time? You become uncomfortable.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
So I'll come down when they make
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Or you know about
Gentlemen, I want to conclude with this text message, and you will enjoy it. Samson, 2 weeks ago, a man was jailed 5 years for stealing 2 pregnant goats. Yet there are people who have been investigated and damned in reports by the Controller and Accountant General. Yet they are driving around free, leaving the poor in a trail of dust and Range Rover exhaust fumes. This is not fair. This is not justice. The National Peace Council and governance NGOs should be interested in the root causes of unrest. If peace isn't founded on justice,
not just the goat.
It will not last. It is very interesting. And the people down there, this is the way they speak, that they hear reports about the big man in trouble and nothing happens to them. But they only, all they need to do is to go and touch someone's chicken and they get jailed.
And the perception out there is that when you see a big man driving a car, it's state resources he has stolen and bought. So that they have this perception.
All right. This show has been brought to you by the kindest sponsorship of MTN. Everywhere you go, Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. Lipton, it's just flowing naturally, and that is inspiration. And my outfit was produced by Latida. Now, this show was, the production was led by Sedem Ofori. Yaya Abubakar, director of television. Behind the cameras have been Bright, Isaac, Sharif, and sound, George, and then lights by Blank. Have a good afternoon. The news is up next.
This is New Close-Up Deep Action. We created it to give the world 3 times fresher breath and eliminate up to 99% of germs. Maybe we went too far. There's an outbreak of freshness. Now the best ever from Close-Up. 3 times